Hi guys, let me share something with you real quick. Here's the thing, Medicare is predatory, not the coverage itself, but the way that it's sold. Too many brokers pushing plans that serve them, not you. Too many mailers designed to confuse you. And for a lot of us, that's not surprising. We're used to systems that weren't built for us in mind. That's why I'm putting you on to Chapters. They're independent, the only Medicare providers that compare every plan nationwide. They are honest, they are salaried, they don't earn more based on what they recommend. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, your whole situation, and they find what actually works for you. If you're already in the right plan, they say so straight up. Whether you're new to Medicare or if you've been on it for years, call Chapter 855-415-7389. It's free, 20 minutes, speak to a real person, know your worth. Testing. 1 2 3 1 2 3. Let me know if you can hear me. Happy Memorial Day, honey. It's a lot of people have the day off. I don't. People are barbecuing. So happy Memorial Day. Hi, Lee. Hi, Will. So I wanted to actually do this show this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern, but the judge wanted to start early. He prefer I gave him a choice, and maybe next time I won't give him a choice, but he probably wants to go out tonight. I don't know. But we're here, and I kind of like 3 p.m. on Monday because it gives me time to do my editing in the evening. But I just think people are more accessible in the evening. But either way, guys, happy Memorial Day. Please like the video. Please share the video. We're going to have a good show. I have a guest coming on today. Meet the candidate. I love that. I have a segment now. It's called Meet the Candidate. Let's see. Let me text him. Where are you? It's called Meet the Candidate, to where anybody running for office locally, nationally, no matter what state you're in, you can reach out to me via email. Actually, let me put this up. Yeah. You can reach out to me via email to come on the show to talk about your campaign and your agenda and promote your campaign and promote you as a candidate. So we've had a couple of people come on. We had Rosemary from Cincinnati, of course, P. Ray from Chicago. So yeah, and then we have our guest today coming on later in the show, Lakeisha Howard for Texas. Yes, honey. All eyes are going to be on Texas starting June 1st because of the Carmelo Anthony case. I kind of want to touch on that today when I do bring my the candidate up, the guest up. And of course, Juneteenth in June. Juneteenth, the holiday originated in Texas. It is a Texas holiday. The Biden administration, but Biden administration made it a national holiday, but it always been a Texas holiday. Trump has endorsed Ken Paxton for senator from Texas. He finally gave his endorsement, so most likely Ken Paxton will be winning that election. And against Tellerico, right? So yeah, all eyes on Texas, and of course, Dr. Candace Matthews. She's been going viral because she calls out discrimination and racism of any background. So Texas stay busy. Shout out to Texas. So I'm excited for the candidate that's coming up today. So of course we have to talk about that. The guest, Memorial Day. I have Cuba Libre. That means free Cuba. So Trump and Mark Rubio have their eyes set on Cuba. They want Cuba. And they feel as though that this is the best time to take over the Cuban government. That's just what it is. That's what they're going to be doing. They want to take over the Cuban government. My question is, because people want to talk about, Fidel and his brother Raul, the DOJ has brought up charges against Raul Castro. He's not even a president. He's 94 years old, but he does have a lot of influence, right? So they brought up charges. I'm calling it Trump charges. And they need a reason. You need a reason to arrest a president, a sitting president, a leader, or to go into somebody's country. You need a legal reason or congressional approval. So they found something, they pulled something out of their ass. And this is just the beginning of potentially the end of the Fidel regime leadership in Cuba, the socialist government in Cuba. But my question is, what's going to happen to the Cuban people? First of all, the Cuban people are suffering right now. Partly because of their government, and then on the other hand, it's because of our government as well. So my concern and my question is, if the U.S. goes in and take control of Cuba, what's going to happen to the Cuban people? The United States, of course, going to put somebody in office that is pro-USA, but is it going to be another Baptista? Are they going to have free elections? Do the Cuban people want that, though? Do the Cuban people want a United States invasion? And if the United States don't come in and embargo and all these economic sanctions and withholding of oil, what's going to happen to the Cuban people? So that's my question. And that is my only concern, because it's the people of Cuba that makes Cuba a beautiful country. It's the Cubans there. I don't want to see a Starbucks. I don't want to see a McDonald's. I don't want to see a whole bunch of corporate nonsense in Cuba. So it's one thing to usher out a government that's no longer working. Socialism doesn't work long term. It worked 70 years it's been in Cuba, but it's been too many hardships. So if you usher out socialism and you bring in capitalism, right? Even though Cubans already practice capitalism to a certain degree, is it going to go back to the Baptista era? You may not have the mob running free, but you're going to have corporations coming in there monopolizing industries. I don't want to see a KFC in Cuba. First of all, I wouldn't even eat it. The Cuban food is wonderful. So again, you want Cuba for what? To give reparations to the Cubans, the exile Cubans that left during the Mariel boat lift? Because they were the upscale Cubans, the white Cubans. You want them to come back and claim back their land? That's not going to help the people of Cuba that's been there all this time. And make no mistake about it, Cuban people, the people in Cuba, they are smart, they are in shape, they have revolution in their blood. So if they don't like something, best believe you're going to have a hard time the Trump administration is going to have a hard time trying to make Cuba what they want it to be. I've been to Cuba. It's a beautiful country. It's romantic. It's a lot of things. There's a lot of positive things, but there's also a lot of hardship. Let me see something. Thank you, Bernard.
Hello.
Where are you?
I'm sitting at my computer. It doesn't want to click. I just upgraded last night. Let me see if I can do it.
You're supposed to be coming on through your phone.
I am, but that's what I'm talking about. I upgraded last night. So it's not clicking. Let me see what I can do to go work around it. Maybe I can come in through the iPad and transfer over.
Mind you, I gave him the link 10 minutes before I even started. Thank you, Bernard. Hi, Dana. Let's surpass the goal on this Memorial Day. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. Yes, I have a goal, guys. Yes, donate, support the platform. Cuba needs to update, but I like you said, we don't want to see, like she said, no KFC, McDonald's, no churches, no Wendy. No, none of these corporations. No. Now, if you have somebody come in and revitalize the railroads, the ferries, yes, they do. And you're right, LaMonica, they need to update. The buildings are collapsing. When I went to Cuba, and that was like 10 years ago, we were supposed to go take salsa lessons, right? And that same building that we were supposed to go and take lessons in, the roof collapsed. So yeah, I mean, update, yes. Invest, yes. But the people of Cuba, they are natural capitalists. They are natural entrepreneurs because they had no choice. They're not peasants. They're not. They may be poor, they may not have money. They are not peasants mentally, psychologically. They're not peasants. There are some countries you go to and they are peasants as far as, wanting help, wanting aid. No, you give Cubans the opportunity and the resources. That's it. That they're going to take it from there. So again, what's going to happen to the Cuban people? I do have some clips. And he updated his phone yesterday, and I'm talking about the judge now. Ain't no telling what he did or did not do. And that's going to be the theme of today with him. I updated my phone. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened either. So let's go here.
Meantime, the communist regime in Cuba says it is preparing for war following this week's indictment by the U.S. of Raul Castro. Cuba's deputy foreign minister is calling it a, quote, political action designed to lay the groundwork for an American invasion. And the Cuban government is reportedly handing out pamphlets to citizens titled Family Guide for Protection Against Military Aggression. The text warns that the U.S. is threatening a military assault to, quote, annihilate the dream of Fidel Castro. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Cuba has consistently posed a threat to the United States.
Cuba not only has weapons that they've acquired from Russia and China over the years, but they also host Russian and Chinese intelligence presence in their country, not far from where we're standing right now. So Cuba has always posed a national security threat to the United States. They, by the way, have been one of the leading sponsors of terrorism in the entire region. We're not going to do humanitarian aid that falls into the hands of their military company that they have, and then they take that stuff and they sell it at the dollar stores and put the money in their pocket. That's not going to work that way.
Meantime, ICE agents in Miami say they detained the sister of a top Cuban military official who oversees a multi-billion-dollar military conglomerate running most of Cuba's economy. Let's bring in now Rick De La Torre, former CIA chief of station in Caracas, Venezuela, and Mike Gonzalez, senior fellow at the Heritage Institute. Gonzalez moved, by the way, to the United States from Cuba when he was 12. Gentlemen, great to have you here. And let me start with you, Rick. it seems inevitable, given the statements by President Trump and others in the administration, that change is coming. How quickly do you expect that to happen?
Oh, I expect it to be relatively soon. Look, what we're seeing is this is the most aggressive U.S. posture towards Cuba in years. The indictment of Raul Castro over the Brothers of the Rescue murders is not just symbolic. It is Washington signaling that time no longer guarantees immunity for regime elites. But the bigger shift is strategic. Cuba is no longer being treated as a Cold War relic or just some sort of migration issue off our coast. The administration is framing Havana as part of a hostile network tied to China, Russia, Iran, intelligence operations, and even most recently, the potential military drone activity off the U.S. So the timing matters, and I think it's going to be a lot sooner than later.
And Mike, is that the framing of Cuba as a threat? Is that fair? I think there's a lot of people who might look at it and think it's a broken island off the coast of Florida. Do we really need to be putting this much effort into it? But is it a real threat, Mike?
Yeah, no, it is. And it's a myth that the Cuban regime has lived off of for many years now. Cuba is a very large aircraft carrier 90 miles from our border. It's got a signals intelligence base that it offers the Chinese in a town outside Havana called Boycott. It collects electronic intelligence, everything from emails, texts, telephone calls. That includes Cape Canaveral, that includes many important bases in the United States. Cuba also is behind a lot of the mayhem on our streets. Don't forget that the People's Forum, Code Pink, the Tricontinental Institute, these are all institutions that are whose leaders are trained in Cuba. So every time you see anything from protests against ICE or Gaza or Iran, these are all pretext. And these are all organizations that are doing Cuba's bidding.
So let me just stop it right there, because, and this is why a lot of that is bullshit. There are different types of organizations that agitate or create, whether it's protests, starting wars, whether it's the CIA, whether it's the Mossad, whatever it is. So what the United States is doing, especially any former or current CIA agent, they're trying to create a narrative and paint a picture that Cuba's been doing all of this stuff, right? Stretching all the way to Gaza, Palestine, and hooking up with China, yada, yada, yada. We had open borders for 4 years. For 4 years under the Biden administration. So all of the I spies from Iran, from China, from Russia came through the border with an open invitation from the United States. But all of a sudden now, any type of security breach or security issues, when it comes to China or Russia, is being assisted by Cuba. And that's what they're telling us, so that we can support and back and not look down on the Trump administration for when they do invade Cuba. Which I think eventually they're going to be touching on violating some international laws. Are you ready, Judge?
Yeah. I had to walk outside to go 5G and then get on and then come back and switch to Wi-Fi. Anyway, I'm good.
Well, you need to adjust the camera.
Well, yeah, I have it in my hand. I was sitting down. I heard the conversation on Cuba. What Cuba is it's a supply depot, a safe haven for those who are about mischief here. Somebody we talked about, we won't mention today, who was into some bank robberies, they fled to Cuba. That's a frequent place of refuge for people who do stuff like that. You give a little bit of change to the Cuban government, they give you sanctuary.
Turn your camera a little bit.
You've got a place where, let's see, can I do that? You've got a place where you can hide out. See, when you do international espionage or certain types of criminality, it helps when you have some place where you can lay your head and you don't have to worry about the law enforcement agents in the area who are local busting in your door and arresting you. And that's what Cuba's been for years. It's been underplayed. I mean, it's not been a popular thing. There were a number of problems that occurred after the debacles under the Kennedy administration in the early 1960s that people wanted to move beyond and keep undercover, but it's been a problem. So, no, it's not the overall problem. It's a big problem. It certainly runs afoul of the Monroe Doctrine, which is for this hemisphere old policy. And as was said, it certainly provides a staging area for people who safely take a relatively short boat ride, which is generally literally under the radar from safe haven to the United States. And it also provides a place for certain people who infiltrated during the open borders of the Biden Harris administration to have picked up those military grade explosives I keep talking about and bring them into the United States and plant them and await further instructions. So it is what it is. And most importantly, it would be
15 minutes till June 1st. That's all it takes to show.
it would be a more advanced type of staging area. And there's always the possibility, since the missiles have gotten a lot smaller and we're now into drone warfare, for which this would be an ideal basing to run afoul of that in our immediate future if we don't do something about it. And I think we can probably get Cuba to go along with what we want them to do.
What do we want them to do?
Well, that is make a commitment to not be so open to the People's Republic of China. It's throwing your weight around, but we can do it. So might as well. And that would be important. But you need to take a look at the Ukraine and what's going on in Iran with the drone warfare and understand what Cuba provides to someone who might be friendly enough to the Cuban government to convince them that they should be allowed to start operations there.
So it says the United States Department of Justice formally issued a federal criminal indictment against Raul Castro, who is 94. He's the former president of Cuba, along with 5 military fighter pilots. The charges stem from their alleged roles in the 1996 shoot down of 2 civilian planes operated by Miami-based exile group Brothers to the Rescue.
That sounds like politics, but it's not unusual politics. That is, take care of your friends and punish your enemies.
Yeah, but I think this is so United States, you just can't go into a country. You need a reason, legal reason,
No,
congressional.
you don't. The only reason you need is to satisfy the people who can turn the money on or turn it off. If we went and did something inside of Cuba that's within the modern discretion of the commander in chief of the armed and naval forces to pull off on his discretion, that it is a security matter. It doesn't have to go to war. We did have the Tonkin Gulf resolution in Vietnam. We did have several that have followed from the Gulf War messes we got into. But there is a certain leeway that allows the president to do extemporized incursions into other places on a police matter. Also, there's a good argument that a lot of what is anticipated could constitute private piracy. And under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, there is no need for a declaration of war to take on piracy. It is an inherent duty and responsibility of the armed services as pronounced by the Constitution itself.
What piracy are you referring to when it comes to Cuba?
What they did shooting down the aircraft. We have Article 6 of the Constitution that says ratified treaties will become part of the supreme law of the land. And part of those treaties declare, some of those treaties declare what happens with the
Well,
aircraft that the Cuban
if you
say refugees were operating. That is now piracy under international law.
if you have it's an unauthorized plane flying over another's country territory, they have a right to defend their airspace.
There are some international protocols, and we have also Article 1, Section 8, quote, to enforce the law of nations. And one of those that is now subject to treaty regulation and being supreme law of our land and part of law of nations is that when there are civilian aircraft involved, some effort must be made to ascertain whether or not it is a military threat or it is some kind of commercial or civil aviation incident. And they did
Right.
not do that.
Well, we don't how to our country, our government is saying they were civilians. They probably were not. They could have been CIA agents, and you
They
have to
could have
keep
been.
they could have been. So, and then what you're citing is our laws, our policies, but that's not Cuba law. And you are
It doesn't make any
flying.
difference.
It does.
It doesn't. They're 90 miles offshore. And with modern aircraft, that is a fully loaded combat aircraft, count to 120. And that's how long it takes to get from a standing start at the end of the runway to over target 110 miles away. So that is well within that 2 minute, 3 minute range from takeoff to strike. So it is crucial. The other thing is drones, especially what they call kamikaze drones, which don't come back because they are the missile themselves. They can operate within those range parameters and they are essentially immune to radar detection under most instances. And speaking of which, because of the sweep and sweep of modern electronics, most of what's said over there can be heard well enough here, including air traffic control matters. And also, you have the point that one of the gentlemen brought out about them being able to do continuous electronics eavesdropping on some vital communications. Um, we had a lot of confrontations in the Cold War about attempting to acquire listening stations so close to the Soviet Union, which in those days included Ukraine. So we've been through this before. And although we're not likely to have a missile crisis like confronted the U.S. out of Cuba in 1962, when Cuba was just a proxy for the Soviet Union, we do still have those considerations. So the point is uh, when it comes to stuff like that, that's kind of that argument. Do we want law and order in our cities, or do we want to say these poor people who are committing these crimes are victims of society, so we shouldn't blame them, and we should be willing to tolerate the depredations that they cause as a result of them being the real victims, that type of attitude. So when you
It's
deal with
like
international law, you
political BS.
necessarily play that. They used to call it 150 years ago gunboat diplomacy. In other words, you send a gunboat down a large river and you give the inhabitants along the shores of that river what they used to call a taste or a whiff of grape, which is a kind of anti-personnel cannon ammunition.
All right. Well, you know, we're all watching what's going to happen next, and I'm going to be doing some more content, just going down the rabbit hole of Cuba. So I want to move on to Memorial Day because we have a guest coming up soon. Memorial Day. I'm going to play this clip here. And I think we all need to take a moment of silence to respect our fallen soldiers and their sacrifice for this country. But I want to talk about the origins of Memorial Day. So let me play this.
The first Memorial Day actually was created by African Americans celebrating their freedom in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War. The story was just almost unbelievable when I first read it. On May 1st, 1865, the Civil War had ended, just ended. People gathered on the old Planters horse track, the racetrack in Charleston, and they held this extraordinary parade. In the last 6 to 8 months of the war, the Confederates had converted the infield of that racetrack into an open-air prison, and about 260 Union soldiers had died. On May 1st, about 10,000 people marched around the old Planters race course, led by some 2,000 or 3,000 black children, carrying armloads of roses and flowers and singing John Brown's body. Followed by black women, black men, and then Union troops. And they marched around the course, and then they gathered in this cemetery that had been created by local black workmen, and they heard preaching from 5 black ministers, according to this article. These were the freed people of Charleston paying tribute to the Union dead. That's the first Memorial Day.
So yeah, that I've heard that story before, and I just want to bring this up here. It says in 1865, free Black Americans honored 257 Union soldiers, and in 1868, the Decoration Day is established. So yeah. And then, of course, it became a national holiday called Memorial Day. So any thoughts on that, Judge?
Essentially, that's the bottom line on it. Also, one thing too, an enormous number of black folk fought for their freedom because, as Grant himself acknowledged in his memoirs, by the time the Civil War was concluded, 1/3 of the Union Army was colored, Negro, African American, black, whatever you want to say, and the number was increasing. Also, a warning to the idiots who glorify dysfunction these days. He remarked on something that at first startled him. He had a survey done, and he discovered that the only completely literate units of company size in the Union Army, and a company in those days was anywhere between 140 and maybe 180 men. The only completely literate units in the whole Union Army, which at that time was the largest in world history, were black. So what happened between ex-slaves, runaway slaves, freed slaves, black freemen for real, who fought in the Union Army and were literate right after the period of slavery, when in large swaths of the country it was illegal, felonious, to teach a black person to read or write. How did they manage that? And now we have the lowest literacy rate in the country. What happened between then and now in the 170-year, going on 170-year period?
Good point. Good question.
Well, like I sent you a chart. I'm not trying to get off the subject, but just adding to it very quickly. It showed that Indian Americans have the highest median income of $100,500 per family, and 72% have an undergrad college degree who are over 25, And for black folk, we are at the very bottom of the heap with a median income of right below 35,000 a year. And we have basically 7% of our population that has a 4-year college degree, 25 and under. And considering how the statistics were so much higher, even 50 years ago, even 70 years ago, and consideration of the black heroes that fought for their own freedom in the bloodiest war the country's ever been in, what happened?
What happened?
There is no Jim Crow. There is no sign out saying no colored allowed or colored allowed only with proper white supervision. There's no Inglewood, California stopping anybody black coming through after sundown and demanding ID. And now it's a black haven. None of this goes on. We have black folk controlling all of the major urban areas of the United States. So what went wrong? And I can tell you this glorification of dysfunction, this buying into it, this componentry of the overall picture to emasculate the country and turn the male componentry into overgrown children, continuously dependent, unable to provide and protect. That is one of the main things that has happened. And it's just because basically the boys in the hood are no longer motivated to be men in the hood. They remain boys subject to being taken care of their whole lives, and they can get out from under that. And the first step is to stop being in a plantation in your own mind and in a natural habitat zoo for the rainbow Negro that you have had adopted by so many because it's the trendy thing to do. Stand up, man up, and do what you have to do. And it doesn't embrace always being liked, and it certainly doesn't embrace your entitlement to emotional expression. Men are not allowed that, and men and women are not the same. And we have the honor of being able to die for what's right and protect womanhood from having to go there. And that protects us from what is usually, even today in the human experience, the miserable experience of dying.
Well, I agree with you. And then there are also other factors as well. But
We don't need to allow them to intervene. We need to overcome them. That's
right,
adversity.
that's what I'm saying. So that's why I agree with you, because that is the first level of defense, everything that you just laid out. And it's the level of defense when you're talking about as far as technology, a lot of I'm looking at it to where, whether it's social media, whether it's your phones, whether it's AI, these different apps, all of these things, that is a big distraction, right? It's turning people to be so narcissistic, lack of accountability. There are too many males than men. The boys are not being taught real manhood. They want to be gentle with the gentle parenting, give them what they want, and allowing the women to lead more in certain areas where they should not, because it just goes against not just biology, but just a cycle of society, of life. So when you look at other cultures and other groups of people, whether it's here in this country or abroad, let's just take somewhat of the Middle East. They instill that manhood. They make sure that they separate the roles of a girl, of a boy, of going into woman and manhood, and that is instilled on top of it with religion. But when you become more westernized, especially here in America, let's just stick to here in America, too much coddling of everybody, women, kids, boys, men. And if you are not prepared, you're not even a pawn on the on a chessboard. You're just going through life without consciously understanding your role in society. And so with that, and then being specific when we're talking about Black America, Black Americans then and now, it is somewhat of of an embarrassment when you look at the state of Black America internally, right? In the 50s and 60s to the state of Black America, especially when it comes to our youth. Now, there is a big difference to where there's lack of interest when it comes to education, lack of interest when it comes to career, achieving more higher paying career jobs or education. We're at the bottom economically with wealth. Now, yes, the institutions and public policies have created that. But what I'm seeing today in 2026, I do not see an agenda or a plan to start economically uplifting and also culturally and the way we raise our children and the way we are bringing boys into men. I don't see an agenda. I don't see a plan. I don't see preparation for that. And with that, we're going to maintain at the bottom to damn near being extinct.
Well, we are doing the plan thing and the implementation thing as we speak. We're trying to preach to something that's not in the choir that badly needs it. I can give a very succinct instruction on where to find the problem that you must face and also the solutions to those problems. Go take a trip to your bathroom and look in the mirror, and you will see the problem and you will see the solution. It resides in you, guys. It's a man thing, or a lot of times a lack of manhood thing, because adversity is welcomed by men as something to conquer and prove their worth. The other thing is, do not be set off by trying to chase pussy. And when I say that, you will get feedback from the typical sister who says that when you have appropriate manly pride, decorum, demeanor, interest, and behavioral standards that have been universal for mankind since humans have been here on this planet, and try to say that you are a narcissist, don't buy into it, because if you buy into it, you won't get the pussy. And next thing is, you won't do anybody any favors, least of all yourself. And next, least of all, the woman who is telling you this foolishness. You have to be a man, because that's what's lacking. And it has become popular for your mama, your grandmamas, your aunts, their friend girls, the women you work with, the people that are the clericals, the ones that may be your bosses, the ones that you may be trying to date or lay, they want you to be nice and safe and not the most dangerous predatory being on the whole planet Earth, or the most dangerous that's ever existed. They want you peaceful. They want you as a nice child they can give instructions to and pamper when it suits them. That's not how it works. You're in charge. Your job is to provide guidance and leadership. Your woman's job is to provide advisement and, let's put it this way, a conscience for you. But you're the one that has to call the shots. You can be nice, you can be gentle, but you have to be dangerous. And if you're not dangerous in the right kind of way, you're useless.
But you have to be taught what that means to be dangerous in a right kind of way.
Yeah, well,
But if you don't
yeah,
have
agreed.
that, if you don't have that man leadership, whether it's in your household or in your community, no one's not going to be able to teach you with that. So there are a lot of things. So just to swing it back to Memorial Day and the free Black Americans that
Yeah.
created it, I don't need to go all the way back to that time to compare. But let's just say that was you were to be a slave, you were just basically not even looked as human. So what these Black people did to say, I'm going to fight on this land for a country that treated me horribly so that I can gain freedom and some type of, no, and upliftment for my people, right? Because I am a man, I am a human being. And that's what they did. And the hardest hardship of time going all through Jim Crow to you have all of these privileges today, and we're still yelling racism, still yelling, I am a victim. Those people weren't calling themselves victims then. Black people weren't calling themselves victims through Jim Crow, not at all, because they didn't want to be looked at as a victim.
You have to learn that that basketball that most of us waste our time trying to play does have a lesson. So does football or anything else that involves a team. If you're a member of the team, you don't ask before you block or you tackle or you pass off or you take the shot or you do the rebound, whether the person you're doing it for, behind, or along with is white, black, brown, red, yellow. They're part of the team, even if you can't stand the son of a bitch's guts.
Right.
You still block for them, tackle for them. You expect them to do the same because they're on the team. Native Americans generally would not be considered for a chieftainship unless they had been able to count coup. In other words, to strike a blow against an enemy. And interestingly enough, as badly as Indians had been treated by the American system, they still found it satisfactory to qualify for chieftainship if you struck a blow, even for the U.S. cavalry. So what they were doing is, even if it was not their war, they participated in it like a lot of other men do, because it is the masculine thing to be capable of war and to be but to be men of peace, dignity, and public order when that is the appropriate thing to be. But you cannot be those three things if you are incapable of vesting war. And I'm not talking about some damn fool trying to play cannibal down in the hood and then waste the meat by leaving it dead on the sidewalk and not eating it,
Right.
or trying to get suicide by neighbor or like suicide by cop. But anyway, look at a mirror and you'll see what the problem is. You'll also see the solution. And I'm saying this because our listenership is likely to be grown men or grown males. And if there are grown ladies listening, then they need to get it. So they back off of these guys and let them be men and stop calling them narcissists because they act like men. Now, the other thing
Well, let me just
is
say this one last. Well, let me say
last little point, raise your children, but you've got to do something about yourself. So one of the things that's important about Memorial Day is not just the dead folk, but the folk who took it upon themselves to have the honor to be part of the war or defense effort, also understood something else, that they didn't sit on their asses playing punk and not getting involved. They took it to the line, they took it to the limit. And whether they died in a basic training accident, they got hurt in a basic training accident, or whether they got injured, killed, disabled, or whatever in active combat, everybody knew this could happen to you, but it was a thing where you took it on yourself, or even if they drafted you, you accepted the risk factor and you did your part. And that's what we ought to be grateful to. We ought to be highly reverent of those people who took the stand that they had to take and when they needed to take it, and they didn't flinch and run.
absolutely. Um, and this is just a sidebar because I want to move on to the next topic. Um, I mentioned narcissism and technology, and I don't think I said it, but I was not just putting that on guys, on the men, women too. Society has become very narcissistic, and technology has just amplified that. So it's not, I'm not putting that on men, women too, and children and the teens. Lack of accountability, narcissistic view on how just it's a mess. And honestly, I'll save that for Thursday because I kind of want to go a little bit deeper into that for Thursday conversation.
Let's do that because it's strange you brought that phrase up today.
Oh,
All last week, I've been getting a lot of the young men that I counsel saying, Judge, am I a narcissist? Where in the hell did you get that? And apparently, amongst young women, it is becoming trendy to accuse the males in their lives of being narcissists because they have proper manly respect for themselves and others, and they have confidence in their ability to being able to face adversity when needed. So that is apparently becoming a trendy little catchphrase for I don't like somebody being a real man.
all right. And we're definitely gonna talk about that on Thursday. All right. I want to head over. I want to talk about the NAACP.
Gee, gracious, must we?
Yes, because they have been like going viral all week. And it's always because of some nonsense. So let me read this here. Where is it? Oh, the NAACP, in coordination with the Congressional Black Caucus, have launched a major social and economic campaign called Out of Bounds. The initiative explicitly calls for Black student athletes, their families, alumni, and fans to boycott and withhold athletic and financial support from public universities in several southern states, predominantly targeting powerhouse programs in the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, and Select Atlantic Coast Conference, the ACC schools. So the boycott is a direct political response to recent actions by Republican-led state legislatures across the South, following a critical U.S. Supreme Court ruling that weaken the key provisions of the landmark 1965 Voting Rights Act. Basically, they just enforced it properly. But anyway, and so now you have the NAACP and Congressional Black Caucus calling for Black athletes to boycott these schools because of the redistricting. Let me just play a couple of clips here.
And I do have a brief something to say about that.
If LSU is for it, we're against it. If the University of Alabama is for it, we're against it. If Ole Miss is for it, we're against it. If the University of South Carolina is for it, we're against it. If the University of Tennessee is for it, we're against it. And if the SEC schools are for it, we are against it. And we will continue to stand against it because we're standing on the side of liberty and justice for all. And
standing on the side of being damn fools. These blue jackasses don't get it. One thing is within 10 to 15 years max, within the productive lifetimes of these damn fools, there's going to be no majority ethnic group in the United States. Everybody's going to be a minority. And if the Supreme Court hadn't stepped in, the current iteration or the previous iteration of the Voting Rights Act and others would be an absolute disaster for these Negroes. And I speak as somebody that is a life member of this organization from way back when, and I wish I could get a refund for having put up the money, but they are foolish, they're stupid, and they're ignorant. And the other thing is they've been perpetrating lies. Like in Tennessee, the colored boys around here who have a little bit too little bass in their voices, they get up and they're into this thing of Tennessee's been deprived of its black voting rights because it can't have any more black representation. Well, guess what? It only affects the office of congressman, and Tennessee hasn't had a black congressman in 20 years. They've got a white Jewish guy in a wheelchair who is a member of the Congressional Liberty slash LGBTQIA plus caucus. And that is the circumstance for just about everybody except 4 or 5 members of the Black Caucus. They are also more active in the Liberty Caucus than in the Black Caucus, except when it comes to securing votes that they don't deliver on. And the next thing that goes with that is they basically don't get this point of you don't have to rely on something Dr. Martin Luther King was against. Correct me if I'm wrong. At Mason Temple, didn't he talk about certain things, and before that, make a famous speech that he revisited there, one of the last nights of his life, when he said, "I dream of a day when people are judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skins." Well,
I think that was for the I Have a Dream speech.
yeah. So yeah, well, yeah, I have a dream, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying
he
I think he
the last
reiterated it.
yeah, the mountaintop.
Yeah, he reiterated some portions of that at Mason Temple here in Memphis. Now, the point is that the Black Caucus always relies on associating themselves with Dr. King. Aside from the point that Dr. King was a lifelong Republican and not a Democrat, they want to rely on the color of a person's skin, not the content of their character. And there are at least 4 Black congressmen who are elected from majority white districts. And in Tennessee, I'm communications director for Ms. Charlotte Bergman, who is looking like she's going to be the first Black congressperson in the last 20 years in Tennessee and the first female ever in this state. So where is the lie on that?
So let me play a couple of clips here.
We have to decide at some point that we must sacrifice. I mean, I hate that we have to ask this of them, but this is where we are in this country right now if you're paying attention. And I've seen some people push back and say, oh, we're asking them to give up too much money. The people who are making the money are the schools, and they're making it on the backs of our children. Understand that fewer than 2% of our children go to the draft, basketball or football, once they've played at these schools. So a sacrifice must be made so we can get our power back, because it is bigger than sports. It's about power.
These are people who were 18, 19, and 20 years old. So I think it sounds ridiculous to say, oh, my God, these athletes are too young today, when folks damn sure weren't too young who were on the front lines in the 60s.
So
Poppin' Fresh Doughboy has an effort to propagandize Black men into being Black males who are too sissified, because that's his game. That's how he makes his ducats.
right. So it says here that the SEC athletes could withhold their services and forego millions from rich boosters, which the NAACP has urged them to do. But it's unreasonably to expect 20-year-olds to move to the front lines of a civil rights fight. Now, here's the thing with these athletes. Yes, less than 2% will be drafted to, whether it's the NFL or the NBA or the MLB. It's not about that. They know that, which is why there were students who actually, this was some years ago, they started to sue these athletic organizations because they weren't being compensated, and the colleges were making millions and billions of dollars off their back. So now it is allowed for athletes, college athletes, to have endorsements, to get paid via endorsements and in some other ways, because their jerseys sell just as much as someone who's in the NFL. And a lot of these guys, particularly if you're a young Black athlete, even some of the white ones, but specifically the Black athletes, come from poor families. So they are supporting their family. before they even graduate. And a lot of them graduate and they go on to have prosperous careers. So to ask athletes to boycott these universities, which has nothing to do with the Supreme Court decision, which has nothing to do with those southern states legislation redistricting. So they're trying to cause chaos and some type of economic boycott with universities, hoping that it would twist the arms of the Republicans to pull back on redistricting and the gerrymandering of the maps. It doesn't work like that. So you want me to not take care of my family?
They ain't
And
taking care of their families. Their mamas are going off and buying every car, house, and dress they have a
it
fantasy on.
doesn't matter. She was on welfare before that. So whether you agree
Yeah,
with
well,
how the money is being spent, they were poor and I'm not poor anymore because I have this opportunity. I'm not about to give it up for two organizations, the Congressional Black Caucus and the NAACP, that didn't give a damn about my mother getting on welfare, didn't give a damn about black communities in these southern states. So they didn't do their job as an organization before the Supreme Court made that decision. So it's not about how someone's going to spend it. It is about that they're no longer living in the projects.
I think there should be absolutely not one dime gained by an amateur athlete. It should all be for play. They get enough when they get to college tuition and the living expenses taken care of, which is the opportunity to invest it in a very lucrative future life outside of sports. I think that one of the big problems is the same driving engine why a certain prominent black coach who was very successful in the football field left and went to Denver, Colorado. And I think it's why black colleges and institutions have been institutions of hypocrisy for the last several decades, and why they go no place, and why the Black Bar Association is pathetic as it is now. And that's because the Negroes who occupy the positions of power in these organizations can't resist the temptation to steal and appropriate funds that seem so endemic in their political counterparts. They steal, they lie, they embezzle, they misappropriate, they cheat, and they do not perform what they were elected to perform because they get the opportunity to misbehave because they are elected based on color, not on performance nor on character. Uh, right here in Memphis, Lemoyne Owen used to have 5,000 some students enrolled. Now they have less than 500. And they brought in somebody to do something about it but they fired it because they had to get a 26-year-old in there who is more amenable to stuff going under the table. I know people who have done a lot of work on ironing out the finances of institutions, and they tell me that they had to leave, they had to resign because the institutions were so crooked. That ranges from the Black Bar Association, which used to have 84,000 members, and now is down to less than 2,500 because of the chicanery, the theft, the misappropriation of funds, to stupidity that I saw one time. I accompanied a judge friend of mine, female, to Atlanta to go to a campus where Spelman, Clark, Morehouse, and et cetera, all located. And we looked at the spectacle of two parents having a fist fight out in front of the student union because their daughters had a fight going on Facebook, which is the damnedest thing I've ever seen in my life. But this kind of thing needs to stop. We need to put it in check. It is not anything that needs to be glorified. I'm talking about it right now because it's a dog thing that is only fitting to be found in poorly trained domestic animals, not humans.
So
It
let
looks
me
like something out of a barnyard or a dog kennel where there's somebody who hadn't trained the dogs to behave.
play this clip here.
The thing that I think about this is that, first of all, it is a community. Like, if you live as a part of a community, bruh, like sometimes people do have to, some people are going to ask you to do things that may be difficult, right? Or they may seem difficult, right? It's like, hey, look, man, just don't go. You just can't go to University of Georgia. Like, that's all we're saying. It doesn't mean that USC is not available to you. Doesn't mean that Michigan and Ohio State are not available to you. We're just asking you not to go here. And I don't think that's that much of an ask. And really, you're not asking it of players. You're asking it of their parents or the people that I guess handlers, for lack of a better term. The second part of this is that I don't think it's going to require hundreds and hundreds of kids to do it. I think it only takes about a handful of kids to put a hurt on somebody that can make a point. And it may not. Look, the Voting Rights Act is dead for, in all intents and purposes, for the rest of our life. Like, I don't think we're going to see it restored before, you know, we're out of here. But the ball has to start rolling now, right? Like, this is like the movement. It's just like the Civil Rights Act did not start in the Civil Rights Movement didn't start in the 1960s. It started as Black folks were losing their rights in the middle of the redemption or whatever, right? And so this is the same thing, bro. Like, I just think that, like, it's just part of a movement, and you're not asking 20 kids, 50 kids. We're just asking a handful of the most desired kids in this country to say, you know what? I don't want to go down there because I don't think that state respects my people or its rights. And I don't want to go someplace where when I'm done playing football, if I move back there, I'm not sure if my vote will count. I'm not sure if it'll be legal to discriminate me to get a job or my family to get a job. I want my people to be treated fairly. And so I'm going to go to a state where, at least for now, it's not explicitly, it's not explicitly written into law. Like, you're not seeing California trying to rip up, well, they are trying to rip up their districts, but for favors of the Democratic Party. So I
have a question, and this is why I totally disagree with any Black person, even a white person, anybody that agrees with a boycott. You're not going to tell me where I can and cannot go as an athlete. I'm not going to I'm not going to withdraw any type of money. And yes, athletes should get paid, and they should be allowed to get paid via endorsements, because these universities and these programs have been making millions and billions of dollars. And by the way, getting paid from endorsements, this is something new. So these universities has been, whether it's in it doesn't matter, southern states, northern, it does not matter, east, west coast, they have been making billions of dollars over the decades on the backs of athletes. And it is these athletes of all of these different sports programs that keeps the doors open on these colleges, universities, and community colleges. However, getting back to this, then every white person should boycott Democrat states that gerrymander and redistrict against Republicans. See, you don't see them complaining about that. So again, stop trying to shame young people or just Black people, period, into your bullshit NAACP and a Congressional Black Caucus. Are you going to give back the money to your donors, or did anyone in Congress stop getting paid during a shutdown? No. They tried to pass a bill, it didn't pass. You're not even giving up your paycheck. When the government shut down, when all of those federal workers that work for the airport, that didn't get paid for over 30 days, you people in Congress still got a paycheck. You didn't withdraw your money. So you want to ask me to do that? I don't know what happened with the judge. Somebody must have called him. Give me a second. There you go.
I don't think collegiate athletes should get a damn dime.
You're talking, and you went out and you didn't realize.
I know. It said up here on the top, a yellow banner that says "Oops, connectivity lost."
All right, so let me land my plane.
I heard what you said. I can hear you.
Let me land my plane.
Go ahead.
So again, I don't have a problem with athletes because it's not just football players. There are other forms of sports where they are allowed to get compensated with endorsement and boosters and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. They're not getting a salary from the school. However, the Congressional Black Caucus and the NAACP to tell Black athletes of any kind, don't go to Southern universities. You are a phony. You are full of shit. You are liars. And the fact that you don't give a damn about none of these Black athletes, because if you did, if you gave a damn about America, then you would have forego your paycheck when it's a shutdown. So you're not giving back your money. Don't ask me to give back mine.
You know what? I don't give a damn
Lead
about
by
whether
example.
I don't give a damn about whether college athletes get one damn dime. I don't think they should until they graduate because they're getting enough being admitted to the schools with different academic standards, competitive assessment, a grade point average, aptitude test, and
That's
or
not what
other.
we're talking about.
No, yes, it is, and or
Oh,
other
wait a minute.
factors
So
that
then you
indicate an
agree.
ability to succeed. In other words,
So
screw
then
them. Let
you
them leave. Let
so
them leave.
then
Let them
you
leave.
agree with the Congressional Black Caucus.
I don't agree with the Congressional Black Caucus, but there are several things wrong with what I just heard. One, it's up to the parent. Hell no. You're going to be 18. That means your ass can vote. That means you're responsible for your damn self. That means it's not up to your parents to keep you in a childlike condition for the rest of the start of your adult life. It's up to you. We didn't play that shit. We did what we had to do because we thought it was the right thing. We could be drafted and sent to the nom. So we manned up and womaned up and we dealt with what we had to do, and we went to colleges and universities based on what we decided to do, not what our parents decided to do for us. So that part was wrong. If you never admitted another athlete to any of these schools, yeah, it might cut them out of being able to get some change out of it, which is scant because they aren't going to finance or give gratuities or royalties to all of the college athletes, just a few of the standouts. And if we didn't have another student athlete in these schools, it still would not obviate the main responsibility of these universities and colleges, which is to get its graduates thinking in the appropriate fashion about how to approach thought rather than going off on belief and bullshit that somebody propagandized into their heads, being logical, reasonable, rational, etc. The other doggone thing is this is ridiculous because if they didn't get any of these student athletes in there, Black or otherwise, that would be more money available for the ordinary students who might make a difference to their communities day after tomorrow. Your typical athlete these days doesn't do much of anything for his or her community other than embarrass it and talk stupid nonsense because he or she is trying to live a wealthy lifestyle like the sick fools in the Hollywood and entertainment industries. Now, that being the case, if you get somebody who is a rare somebody, like Jackie Robinson, who was on the UCLA's football team as a All-American halfback, All-American track star in the 100-yard dash in 220, was a captain in the U.S. Army, resigned after a court martial when he refused to move to the back of a bus and pulled his 45 out. And according to the testimony, said some MF besides me is going to die tonight down in Texas, a decade and a half before Rosa Parks et al. Did what they did to move peacefully, refused to move peacefully to the back of a bus. Okay, fine. If you're going to play like some of the other Black folk that are famous, like even Justice Thurgood Marshall, Mr. Baseball, not because he played it, because he had a Louisville Slugger to hand and a short barrel 12 gauge and a 25 round box of double-aught buckshot in case he ran into the wrong kind of problems. We need more of that, not somebody running around trying to just hang out in a nightclub and do nothing. I have no problems with a Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan or somebody like that, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who want to use their college athleticism as a springboard into some kind of after sports relevance. That's okay. But there are too many spoiled brat mama boys already out there on the courts and the fields who don't do much of anything to promote the concept of masculinity because they got their hair worn like girls. They run around, they're coddled by the rules, and it's crazy. And if they want to get involved, then stand up and do something. Quit trying to be overgrown children and do it on your own. It's your responsibility, not your parents.
So let me say this. You're talking about the professional athletes in the NBA and the NFL.
I'm
Because
talking about what they're talking about with
college,
collegiate athletes. I represented a bunch of them around in
let
this
me
area.
finish. The college athletes, majority of them are not going to be professional athletes, but the majority graduate with a degree. A lot of them are business owners. They have professional careers and they have families. That is the majority of the college athlete when they're done with college.
Yes, it is.
The athletes that go to the NFL, that go to the NBA, that go to the MLB, that's Showtime at the Apollo. That's different. They become the ultimate celebrities, so they get pampered. They have all. They don't have no. They have yes men. We're not talking about them. I'm talking about the college athlete. One, if they should get paid because they've been getting used for decades. That's something that we disagree on. That's fine. But two, if I'm a parent and you have these organizations saying to my kid, oh, don't go to the Southern, and it has nothing to do with them discriminating against me because I'm Black, you're talking about a political machine, the Democrat Party, that have done more harm to Black people in the Black community than good. You want my son to help you in your political bullshit when you in turn continue to get paid when my ass was laid off. No, ma'am. No, sir. This is why, no, you do not stand up with them because they have done nothing to help our cause or help us, period. So I want to play this other clip here.
What's going on is when they went redistricting, I believe liberals, Democrats got nervous about their own party. I don't believe this has anything to do with student athletes. I think it's trying to leverage student athletes to save the Democratic Party. I think it's all nonsense. Look, I think most times, the messenger is important. And Jeffries, he referenced Martin Luther King. He referenced Jesse. He referenced all these things. But his message isn't dynamic. His message doesn't resonate. We've already seen in college athletics kids making a lot of money. Okay. Kids aren't going to give that back up for political position. Now, they may give it up for a social justice. They may give it up for a wrong to be righted. But they are not going to give up, in some cases, millions of dollars to do what? Play college football because some politicians are mad about a political map? That's just not going to happen. Good for him. He's using student athletes. It's not the first time student athletes have been used before. It won't be the last time, but it's utter nonsense. And the guy Jeffries as a message is not dynamic. Nobody will rally around it. And it's a colossal waste of time. And it's posturing. I didn't see them doing this in Virginia. I didn't see them. I saw Barack Obama actually in Virginia supporting a white woman for governor over a more qualified African-American woman. So the idea is just garbage to me. It's nonsense, and nobody's going to take it serious in the sports world.
See, I agree with what he said. I have no objection to that. I don't think these kids should allow themselves to be exploited by charlatans and manipulators. Now, I'm a lawyer, been one for 5 years. I'm retired from that. I've been a lifetime member of the NAACP, but for the last 35 years, I haven't seen a damn thing that the NAACP has been doing that's worth doing. And a lot of people have a sinecure because they get paid high salaries to organize and administer doing nothing. So it's a game. We don't need an NAACP. They started out as an organization financed by the Jewish community to run interference with the circumstances 120 some years ago. The theory was if you couldn't do it to a Negro, you couldn't do it to a Jew. And they got financed
What's going
and
on is when they went
subsidized for that. Now, that utility is gone, and we've got a bunch of charlatan black representatives, Negro representatives, and I use that instead of the N word because I refuse to say that. We've got these Negroes who are elected because of the color of their skin rather than the content of their character or their capability in the office that they seek. So that is said because I think the whole thing is an evil game plan that some people who have a clue, instead of doing the right thing, they do the wrong thing to exploit the circumstances. Now, as I said, so few collegiate athletes are in the mix that if they didn't get another one in one of these institutions, nobody would suffer, and maybe the kids would spend more time getting their heads together rather than being distracted by circuses, as per what Caesar said. Give them bread and circuses, and they won't care what their betters do. Now, that said, it's been a long thing out there. And by the way, the first affirmative action program set up in the 1960s relied upon the schism between what was done for student athletes and what was done for everybody else. We said when you have programs set up that allow a certain category of student to slide in under the radar when it comes to grade point average and aptitude test assessment, in a competitive basis, and you say there are other factors such as his athletic prowess that make him deserving of an exception, we said there are other students who have had backgrounds that make them deserving of the same exception, so we cannot reserve this for just the athlete who does very little in terms of fallout to his or her impacted community after they get the college degree. So pick the people who maximize the fallout to their respective communities when they get the degree, and you educate them to develop leadership and innovation in those communities, which is necessary if they want to rise someplace other than staying just a slight above the very bottom. Now, that said, okay, fine. You don't need to let the NAACP and the elected because of skin color bunch in Congress or anywhere else control the narrative because it's a false one. The whole thing about appealing to the parent for somebody who's old enough to sign a contract, join the military, vote, is absolutely absurd. That is an indicia. That is indicia that you're just trying to preserve childlike behavioral characteristics and outlooks in perpetuity instead of allowing these children to grow up to be adults. And that stinks to high heavens. So, as it is articulated, it is a game plan for some hustlers relying on skin color rather than excellence who want to run this you are a victim game into the ground so they can continue to con people out of their money and circumstances.
I want to play this last clip here.
Do you think that the NAACP, an organization that is set apart for the advancement of colored people, do you think that they have experienced mission drift or mission creep?
Well, they were set up by the communists, and when they were founded in 1909, and so they were always controlled by white progressives. And then when what was it, Julian Bond? Can't remember which one opened the door to the LGB. I'm not going to add the T because the T came on more recently, but they made the gay community. There was a book by the guy's name is escaping me. It was the title of the book was After the Ball.
After the Ball. I'm familiar with it.
They had a strategy.
Kirk and Mattson.
Yeah, maybe so, but they had a strategy for changing the worldview of Americans towards homosexuality, and so they wanted to frame it as a civil rights issue, where black people And their organizations, for the longest time, they fought against that. Like black people, I can't change my skin color.
That's right.
But people that are part of the LGBT community can move back and forth as they please. You asked me about the NAACP.
Yes.
They were always controlled by white progressives, just like Black Lives Matter. And just about every black organization that pushes progressive causes is some white person behind it paying the bills and pulling the strings.
So aside from the LGBTQ part, because our guest is coming up, I agree as far as the NAACP and the white progressives controlling it.
I don't think it's a communist thing from 1909. Far from it. That wasn't resonating with much of anybody back then. It was dealing with American apartheid, aka Jim Crow, aka segregation, aka Plessy versus Ferguson. Now, they conducted a successful campaign that in 1954 resulted in Brown v. Board of Education. Thurgood Marshall was lead counsel on that, but Brown was not his case. It was one of many cases that were consolidated by the U.S. Supreme Court. Everybody hated the Chief Justice, Earl Warren, who was formerly Republican governor of California, which is a boogeyman state now. And it's interesting to have lived through that and been old enough to realize what was going on, because you could see it every day when you ran into no colored allowed, colored only with proper white supervision, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you saw that a lot. So it is what it is. And there's a lot of, shall we say, historical manipulation to fit a narrative that needs to be re-examined. But I mean, it had its utilities, but its time is past, because what it does now is in fact in favor of LGBTQIA plus, because of its influence, not its influence, but because of the influence and affiliate NAACP Image Awards has had on it. They're two separate organizations chartered under different incorporation articles. And the Image Awards has by requirement 400 members of the NAACP who have to be on the board, and 400 members of the Hollywood entertainment industry that don't have to be NAACP members. And because a lot of money is dumped into this as a cheap way to advertise stuff that helps out on the distribution cost of movies, songs, recordings, and things like that, television programs, there has been a lot of money that comes in that basically runs the NAACP as the founding organization right now, and that's how these people get their money. So Hollywood is telling them what to do, and Hollywood is by its own accord 9/10 into that alphabet bunch. And that's what it's all about. They are operating that way. They can't talk about it. I know people who have run or want, at least right now, running an NAACP chapter, and they've been told that under no circumstances are they to allow any on the record discussions of this rainbow cult thing. So that is a firm basis. And you know who I'm talking about and how close we are. I hear it over and over again. What am I going to do? They won't let this be mentioned. So it is a reality. And this is part of the game plan, the sneak plan of a theology trying to secretly, clandestinely impose itself on this country. So when you listen to these characters right here, they're probably more interested in sports because the football players have on tight pants, like I guess the baseball players do these days, and they're getting excited about it. So that's what your problem is. And I suggest that if you go take a look, which you can find online, look at the membership photos of the Liberty/Gay Caucus in Congress, and look at the membership photos of the Black Caucus. In one, on the latter, you will see a lot of white people are members of the Black Caucus. And I think every one of the Black Caucus members, outside of maybe 4, if I'm not mistaken, no more than 5, are active members of the Liberty Caucus. So you will see that the commonality is the same. And when you look at the legislation they have sponsored, helped draft, it's not Black oriented legislation, it's rainbow legislation. And they're using color to get elected to promote the rainbow rather than dealing with Black issues. So it's a big farce, and you don't need to listen to them about anything other than maybe if they gave you an honest assessment of how much money they're stealing.
So I want to bring this up. I'm going to move on to, I want to stay on the Democrats because a couple of things I want to bring up with them. I don't see the guests. I know she is campaigning. So if she does not, if she's not able to come on today, because I hope it's not an issue, we're just going to pre-record with her this week. So I'll just wait to hear to see.
Yeah, I understand that. Campaigning these days is not the same as it used to be 20, 25, 30 years ago, because social media makes it easier, but it makes it much harder because it doesn't necessarily uniformly expose people to the voting public.
Right. So a lot of Democrats now are all of a sudden talking about reparations. Oh, honey, they're pulling at straws. They're trying to find a needle in a haystack to stay relevant, right? Or just to have a win. And it's too late because, listen, all this talk with the boycott and blah, 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 it's not, I see the guest, so I'm going to bring her in. I'll say this afterwards then, because I really wanted to talk about this, but I see the guest. All right. Hi.
Hello.
Because I was hoping, I hope she's not having no connection problem. Sometimes that happens.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
We made sure we tried to work out those connection problems in advance.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, because I was like, I hope she does not have any connection issues. But how are you?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. How are you all?
Great. So let me just introduce you to the audience. This is Lakeisha D. Howard. You are running for Texas House District 124, and you are running as an independent, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
So I wanted to start having these segments of Meet the Candidate. So, tell us about you and your campaign.
So as you said, I'm Lakeisha D. Howard, and I am running as a conservative independent here in San Antonio, Texas, which covers the greater Lackland and west side of San Antonio. I'm a retired Air Force veteran, also a retired servant leader of the Department of Veteran Affairs. I have a master's in clinical mental health, and I love people. I absolutely love people. I'm a mother of 7, a nana to 9. I've been with my husband, my forever man, for almost 30 years. And we've been here in San Antonio since 2002, living life. So when I retired last year from the Department of Veteran Affairs, I tried to think of things that I will do to continue my servant leadership. And God placed it in my heart to look around my community. And I didn't like what I saw around my community. And that's when running as Texas State Representative for District 124 came visible to me. So as an independent, because I'm not owned by anyone but Jesus Christ, I decided that it is best for me to run as an independent. It requires a lot of work, right? A lot of work, because Texas requires 500 signatures from independent candidates in order to even get on the ballot. So we're in our signature petition drive right now. I don't have a problem with putting in the work. I was built for it. I was built to work. My mom raised me with work ethics. The Air Force matured those work ethics. The VA solidified them, but the community made it reality. So I put in the work every single day for my community. So why not run where I can bring policy that benefits my community, engagement that benefits my community, love in action that benefits my community, to show that there is a different way to do things to make a community thrive instead of bringing it down. So that's what our focus is on. That's why I chose to run. I want to make sure that my grandkids, who are now third generation in a community, can have a legacy that they're proud of, that they can stand on my shoulders and my husband's and other community members and be proud of that. And the only way that I figured to do it at this point in life is to run as a Texas state representative for the district.
Some of the things here on your agenda is mental health and wellness, housing and homelessness, youth empowerment and education, seniors and veterans, economic development and growth, transparency and trust. That's a lot.
That's a lot, but it's a holistic.
Right.
It's holistic. So when we sat down to figure out what was going on in the community, we wanted to come in a way like nobody else has. We wanted to make sure that our platform can get to the root cause of what was going on in the community. In order to do that, we have to look at things holistically from the ground up. So this is going to require a whole new foundation in order for stability to be maintained in the community. So that's why, yes, it's a lot on our platform, but it captures every aspect of a human being.
So, Judge, do you have any questions before we get into a couple of topics?
I was going to make an observation. If you're a good politician, you know the truth of this particular statement. If you aren't asked the right questions, answer the ones you should be asked. So rather than asking you, what do you want to tell us?
What I want to tell you, I'm not a politician at all. I am a person, again, who loves people. I have seen the demise of people. I know that I sit before you and I look like I'm all together, but I'm by far from that. I am blind. I'm deaf. I use assisted devices to see and hear. And I don't make light of this. For me, this is about life or death for my community. That's what this is about. You know, I was listening to you all before we got on talk about quite a few things. The biggest one that I really tuned into is that of what the NAACP is trying to get our kids to do. These are our future. And one of the things that I heard you say, Judge, was accountability at 18 years old. That's when we have the opportunity to make sure that that 18-year-old is not all about sports, but life sustainment. And in order to have life sustainment, they have to answer to accountability, whatever it is. So for me, this again is about life and death, because there's too many children in our community that are either dropping out of school and going straight to prison. Why? Because we haven't gotten to the root cause of why everything happens, from source to symptom, to hearing to respond versus hearing to listen, to emotional regulation and reality, to our demise of our men. You know, I look at my husband, who I've been with for almost 30 years, that we have raised 5 boys and 2 girls and many other people's kids along the way. And I look at my young men, my sons, and I look at some of the sons in the community that, had they had a mother and father as my boys had, what would be the difference? So again, for me, this is not about politics. I know I have to learn that part because that's the nature of the beast. But as an independent, I get to speak my voice for my community. And that is priority for me.
So you,
May I make an observation to you? I bet you know politics well, but I don't think you understand what it is. You are a matriarch. You've got 7 kids and 9 more or so that you have taken under your wing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have an extended family outside of them, right?
Yes, sir.
Does everybody in that family get along?
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, you know what happens when you have one person or 2 people trying to persuade others to go along with what they perceive to be the right program?
Yes, sir.
That's politics. Politics, a definition I got 60 years ago in political science, consists of this. Anytime you have just 2 people, you don't have politics involved necessarily unless it extends outside of them. You just have 2 people. Either both of them are going to go along with something or neither of them are going to go along, or one of them calls the shot. If you have 3 people and you want it to be 2-4 or 3-4, somebody's going to have to persuade the third person to go along with what they want. That's called politics.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So you already know it well. You just have a,
she's more of a stateswoman.
well, that's politics too.
That's no politics.
Statesmanship versus political hack.
Right. She's not a hack. Like, she actually wants to do work. I want to bring this up because I want to throw in.
And by the way, Veterans Day, Memorial Day today. Thank you.
Yeah, but she's alive. So
no, you don't have to be dead. For me. You don't have to be dead. It's the service.
No, he was saying thank you for your service.
And thank you, sir.
So Texas is really going to be in the spotlight starting June 1st because the Carmelo Anthony case.
Yes, they are. Yes, we are.
Yes. And you're already somewhat in the spotlight because Trump just endorsed Ken Paxton for Texas Senator,
yes,
Republican. So I wanted to get some of your thoughts on that. First, let's start with the Carmelo Anthony. What do you think we should expect, right? Because I don't know what is it, what's the feel on the ground in Texas? You know, are people in Texas paying attention to that particular case, the Carmelo Anthony case, or are they more focused on the Senate race between Kim Paxton, it looks like is going to win, and Tallarico? You know, I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
So personally, in reference to the situation with Carmelo Anthony, there has been a lot of chatter on the east side of the city, but on the west side, not as much. Now, from my standpoint personally, I think that this situation is definitely an unfortunate situation that has occurred. on both sides of the fence, the young man who is no longer with us, as well as the young man who's facing these severe charges. So, you know, there's a division, of course, here in the San Antonio area, but that division is not as much on the west side of town. So for me, I think that when we look at this situation, we have to go again to the root. Why did this situation occur? Why did it get to this extent for a person to take somebody else's life? What could have been done to prevent this entire situation? Getting to that root cause. What was in the thought process when that first situation occurred with being bullied, when it was informed to the higher ups, the school leadership, the parents? Where was the meeting of the minds to come up with a solution to resolve this before it escalated to this point where a life was taken?
And we were just talking about it earlier when we were talking about, you know, the youth and boys going into manhood. That's that lack of accountability, narcissism, all of these things that's going on in society, you know, that are affecting how young people are making decisions or putting themselves in certain situations. And of course, race is playing a major factor when we talk about the news outlets and the social media, you know, but but it's the law. You have to, justice is blind, you know. You have a family that lost a child, and you have another family that may potentially lose their child to the prison system. So it's no winners here. And it's an unfortunate, sad situation, and I am going to be following it because it starts June 1st. It's not going to be televised.
Right.
It's going to be close knit. Go ahead. You want to say something?
You know, I also look at the fact that we're talking about the mentorship aspect as well, right? When you just said a moment ago how we raise our children and what we are allowing to be embedded in our children. What has to change? Something has to change, or we're going to see more and more of situations like this. And even though this situation is going to be boiled down to race, we know that, okay? What and how do we get to the bottom of the change for this to not keep occurring?
Judge, you want to say something on it?
Well, I have a very unpopular position on this. I think what happened when you talk about this is we've been protecting children from bullying and been resolving their problems for them that they ought to have learned how to work out themselves. And there ought to be many fist fights in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh grade to taper off because the young males are learning how to adjust to and deal with the necessity of resolving personal animus, adversity, and conflict with each other. But we protect them starting from their first assemblage in large groups. So by the time they get old enough to vest adult level violence, they don't understand, they don't have it internalized, and they don't comprehend what it is to work out these differences. We don't have Back to the Future with McFly going back and talking Dad into standing up to Biff and coming back and Biff no longer bullying him, but working for him. So we don't have that anymore because we have tried to protect people from the consequences of being human and growing up. That's my view on the thing.
I think that because when they stop teaching critical mass thinking, when they stop teaching life skills, in the household as well as in the school system, because it's a partnership and a relationship. I think that if we can get back to the critical mass thinking aspect of life, and that strong word, accountability. And one of the things that we as parents, my husband and I, did with our children, we're from Detroit, Michigan originally.
Yes. Okay. All right. You come a long way.
Yes, sir. My husband's from Ohio, Springfield, Ohio, and I'm from Detroit, born and raised.
Motown.
So back in my day, we were taught critical mass thinking, and therefore we raised our children to think in that same manner and to know accountability. If you get arrested, we're not coming to bail you out, because those are the consequences of your actions.
Wait a minute. Y'all parents wasn't going to bail you out?
They shouldn't. You did it. You stuck with the consequences. Learn from the experience.
That's
You remember conversations you and I have had about, I don't buy into this unconditional love nonsense. You have to earn it. If you messed up like this, then you pay the piper for what you did.
That's
Might
right.
hit you somewhere, but don't ask me to get you out of a mess you got yourself into. You should have listened. And you may have a sibling or a cousin who gets the point. We should have listened. We should listen. We don't want to be like cuz over here or bro over here, you know.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Sister T says she left her daughter in jail. What is this? No.
Yeah.
My thing is this. My mom always told me, and she was a single parent for many years, I'm going to teach you and I'm going to raise you to be better than me. Now, what you do with that after that, that's on you. But you can't say that I didn't give you the tools and the resources to be better than me. And she said, when you're pointing at your children, you're going to have 3 fingers pointing back at you. So you remember your actions. You remember that there's always consequences to whatever you do. But you have the choice. You either do right or you do wrong. But you're going to have to answer either way. And that's how we raised our kids. So if you get out there and you acting a buffoon, guess what? You're going to suffer the consequences of acting a buffoon. It's just that simple.
So let me ask you this. This is a good conversation we're having. So part of your campaign, because I have it up here, part of your campaign in your agenda, economic development and growth, as far as mentorships, grants, fair policies, building bridges between schools, businesses, and nonprofit, workforce pipeline, because a lot of children, a lot of kids, a lot of teens, a lot of young adults, particularly teens, when we look at what's going on in these different cities throughout this nation, funding is being cut for school, summer jobs, after school programs, so don't you think there needs to be a reinvestment in our children and our teens so that they can learn to make critical decisions, right? And just be on a right path. So they're not focused on social media and teen takeovers. They actually have something productive. So is that part of your plan,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would be so wrong if that wasn't a part. I actually own 2 nonprofits that cater to youth mentorship. Again, going back to the foundation I was raised on, I'm going to give you all the resources. I'm going to get those resources. If they're not in the community already, I'm going to find them to ensure that we can give seeds of growth that empowers. When I say empowers, I mean, I want to see our community, our youth, I want to see them as business owners. So, you say you want to own an electronics business. Well, let's pair you with someone who's already successful in electronics so that we can make sure that you're successful as well. Oh, you want to do this or that. We're going to find the mentor, the perfect mentor for that youth. That's something I've been doing for the last 20 years here in San Antonio. I own a nonprofit called Pearls for Destiny, and I also own one called Mothering the Mother and Motherless, where we take youth and those who do not have parents, even adults who don't have mothers, and we pour into them, giving them a hand up, not creating a cushion for them to stay where they are at. So any program that we implement is always going to focus on taking the person to the next level for stability, not giving them a hand to stay in the same position, but giving them a hand to thrive, to be better than they were when we first met. So empowerment, education, making sure we have the proper funds in place for our schools. Our public schools right now are really suffering. Some are being transitioned back into the state's care. Some are being moved into charter schools. And so this is happening right before our eyes because schools are receiving failing grades, but they're still not getting to the root of why. So if you get to the root, you got a child who has chronic absentee. Why do they have chronic absentee? Because their parents can't get them to school, or their parents were never taught the importance of being in school every single day. So there's no accountability there with the parents. So we can come in and say, hey, let's get to the root of this problem. Let's address the root so that we can make sure that this student is thriving in school. The teachers have the resources to make sure the student is not just being taught a test, but they're being taught the skills to make them successful so that they can be in positions such as judge, such as yourself, such as myself. Having those things in place for each and every child to be able to thrive. Because again, in my particular district of Texas House District 124, we have a huge high school dropout rate. We have a huge school to prison rate. We have, unfortunately, 4 and 5, 6 generations repeating the same exact thing. We also have a huge teen pregnancy rate. We have to break the cycle somehow, and that's going to take building a new foundation. And it starts, in my opinion, with the critical mass thinking and accountability for all, not just the parents, not just the school system, but most importantly, that child. Because we know children nowadays, they know so much based on social media, based on this celebrity and that celebrity. Right. But they do not know accountability because this celebrity and that celebrity, or this athlete, that athlete, this superstar, there's no accountability there. But if we can show what accountability means at that young age, we can change the trajectory.
Listen, I'm definitely having you come back on next month because we're gonna have, because we talked about this behind the scenes, the stuff we're gonna be talking about in June. And like I said, Texas is gonna be in the headlines this summer.
Yes.
I definitely I want to follow up with this conversation. It's a great conversation I need to be had. And I do want to go next time, go deeper with those stats you just laid out in your district. Judge, do you have any last questions or anything you want to say before I let her go?
An observation. I just had a thought. Are you a hand up? Are you holding hands or are you holding down? And it seems like you've been about the business of being a hand up rather than just holding hands so you feel better and holding somebody down. So that's a good thing. I like that. I want you back.
Thank you so much, sir. And I'm definitely about making sure that people can live on their own and work for themselves. That's accountability to me.
Right. What do you call
Yeah.
that? Self-sufficient in a positive way, to be
Yes.
self-sufficient in society, to contribute to society. Thank you so much.
If I can share one more thing with
Yes, go
Come
ahead.
on,
if
give
you
us what you got.
keep me in your thoughts, because I have to get 500 signatures. We want to get 1,000 signatures so that we will have the cushion that's needed, because they're going to challenge me. I already know that, and I'm ready for the challenge. So we have to get these 500 signatures from registered voters in our district of District 124 in order for us to get on the ballot. So we have 3 weeks left to get these signatures. We have to turn them into the Secretary of State on June 24th in order for us, again, to get on the ballot for the November 2026 election. There has not been a individual independent to win the state House representative election in over 50 plus years in the general election. So this is not something that I'm taking lightly. As I said before, this is serious for me. And I'm doing the work. I will continue to do the work. And I've been doing the work all my life.
Question, the 500 signatures, the 500 signatures have to come from people in your district?
Yes,
Okay.
who did not vote in our primary. So they could not have voted in the March primaries, and they have to be registered voters that live in the district. So we're boots on the ground every single day, doing different events, door knocking, popping up everywhere we can to make sure that our community know that they have another choice other than the Democrat establishment, the Republican establishment. They now have an independent who wants to hear from them and who wants to take their voice to our state capitol.
Do me a favor. Right, you do this. Send it to Dana, and I'll post it on X. Send me those standards you just gave us.
Yes, sir. I sure will.
And give us a name or names and how people get in touch with them so they can sign your petitions.
I sure will.
Okay.
And
Yes.
I'll post it on X.
Yes,
All right.
he has a very large following on X. So yeah, send it to me and I'll send it over to him. But I want people to go to West.
And one other thing, Tuesday we do an X space. You might consider coming on.
Tuesday X space
You
tomorrow.
can talk live and get questions, and you can break that down again.
So
yes, sir.
We'll talk after I do the show. I'll call you after the show to fill you in. But I want everyone to go to her website. That's www.teamldhoward4texas.com. I'm gonna put it in the description. I'm gonna put it in the comment section. Go to the website, donate, because money is important too when you're running for office.
Yes.
And also get the word out. If you live in Texas, if you know people in Texas, get the word out so that anyone in her district, you could tell them sign the petitions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Howard. Definitely going to have you come back on. We spoke already. Come back on next month, at least twice before the June 24th deadline. And I want you to join us tomorrow night for the X space as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. Blessings to both of you. I appreciate you greatly.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
All right.
Lovely woman. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Love her. Please use social media to reach her. Yes. That's a great idea too. X space. Oh my God, I didn't think of that. So this is new for me. Meet the candidate, because I could have suggested that with Rosemary P. Ray. She was on X space a lot. And I didn't even think of X space. So you just said till you said that. Yeah, great idea. Thank you, Judge. So yeah,
Every now and then I'm useful.
I know. No, you're always useful. Let me say this. A couple more things before we get up out of here, guys. Please hit the like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Please share this video on all your social media outlets. Heaven's Wind Song. And what I'm going to start doing, I'm not going to, maybe I will curse, because that's just me. I'm not going to change who the hell I am. Bitch, fuck you. Let's start off with that.
What prompted that?
Because this is what she wrote. Poor Judge Joe Brown. He appears to be somewhat antiquated. Bless his little heart.
Fuck off.
See? Someone antiquated. When somebody say bless your heart or bless your little heart, they're basically trying to call you fucking dumb.
And look, you stupid idiot, the shit you've been burning your little soul about, it ain't working worth a damn, and you're some pathetic little weaklings who get ripped off, used up, and thrown to the side, and you're too damn stupid to understand that. So wise up, get up, and start listening to people who've made it in life.
Right. And this is Heaven's Wind Song. Girl, bye. That's why I said, when I said, bitch, fuck you, and you get like, whoa, now you know why I said it.
It's like, come on.
And it's like, listen, he's not antiquated. It's meaning that you're outdated, out of touch. No, you know what you're talking about. People may not agree with you, but but you know facts, you know history, you know geopolitics, you know politics, all that stuff. So yeah, and listen.
Look, I resolve people's problems for 55 years. I still do. I got 100 young men and women that call me up or text me all the time for advice. I see it. I'm still in the dating game my damn self, all right? So I see this stuff all the time, and it works. So you might do yourself a favor and take a listen and quit being judgmental, because I don't go into or buy into your bullshit. Because you wouldn't be saying that if your stuff worked.
I know it's old. I saved it because I said I was going to swing back to it.
Let's hear. What now?
No. That comment I just read, because maybe, and what I should do, instead of me saving it, what I will do next time is just address it right then and there. But I think we were in the middle of a topic and I was not going to stop to address it. So I seen it. That's why I saved it for now. And that's why I'm like, whether she's listening or not, fuck her. That's why I put it up so we could see the name, see the picture of her and anybody else that thinks like her. So yeah. I want to get to this real quick. I want to get to I want to get to Democrats and the reparations. Did you heard about that autopsy report?
Which one? Oh, Democratic disaster for 2024.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. They dissected they had a dead vulture. No, excuse me, dead hyena that was up there, and they looked at the carrion eater and they analyzed it. So yeah, I get it.
Well, see, the Democrats, what I was saying earlier, they are pulling for straws. They're trying to find a needle in a haystack to have a win. And now they're talking about reparations. And with this autopsy report, I didn't even know that was a thing. It's 2024 presidential election autopsy report. I guess Trump, they don't have one because they won. And that was a very successful campaign. And Kamala Harris, Biden and Kamala Harris spent way more money than Trump did on the 2024.
Yeah, and that shows you can't always buy something these days. See, the Democratic Party plays this blame game, complaint game, and they don't deal with the correction game, which is, okay, you're whining about it. What do you offer as a solution? We got a boogeyman. Well, okay, fine. That's what you say. We like him, we follow him, and we're not this bunch of pathetic losers that you're trying to encourage to remain pathetic losers. It is an absolute disgrace and an embarrassment that in 2026, which is okay, 135, 145, 155, 161 years after the Civil War was over, you still have black folk in the face of all of these other people who have come in and immigrated here. We are dead last out of a list of 20 ethnic categories in per household median income, 35,000 a year, which is a disgusting disgrace. And we are at the bottom of the heap in terms of median college education, which is 7% who have a 4-year college education. That is a disgrace.
It is.
And if you were done wrong, you deserve it. If you were that pathetic and don't get the idea that all of the rest of the people have not been whining and excusing and justifying their pathetic performances by trying to claim somebody else's fault. If somebody else is the fault of your problems, kick the damn ass.
Well,
don't punk out and get, oh, please don't hit me. Don't hit me.
So let me
Damn, that is disgusting.
I want to read a little bit of this autopsy because it says the public backlash, because the Democrat National Committee Chair Ken Martin officially released the long-awaited 2024 presidential election autopsy report, 192-page post-mortem, authored by veteran Democrat consultant Paul Rivera, offers a critical look at the party's structural failures, though it has drawn immediate fire for what it leaves out. So, core findings and critiques of the campaign: writing off middle America, identity politics versus concrete issues. It urges the party to pivot away from abstract issues and identity politics, pointing to the success of regional Democrats like North Carolina Governor Josh Stein, who won their races by focusing strictly on localized economic issues and infrastructure and jobs. Duh.
Yeah, and what is it that their main issue is? We got to promote the rainbow cult.
The boxed-in messaging failure. The autopsy highlights major failures to handle Republican messaging, specifically noting that the Harris campaign was utterly boxed in by highly effective GOP attacks ads regarding past progressive stance, such as taxpayer-funded gender-affirming surgeries for inmates, leaving the campaign with no viable response. I'm sorry. Open border, that really nailed the coffin. The open border.
Or how about little punks in sports bras and panties in blue splashing around in a bubble bath trying to sell men's beer, or invading girls' restrooms, locker rooms, and beating up on girls in sports, or splashing their poison all up and down hallways in elementary, junior high, or middle and high schools, trying to propagandize the American children into being joint freaks. Yeah, okay. How about that? How about the fact that you're trying to destroy free enterprise? How about the fact that you're trying to make the country wide open to terroristic enemies? How about the fact that you're trying to destroy the thing called initiative and being able to deal with adversity, to destroy reasonable, rational, logical, analytical, detached, and objective thought processes, and deal with propagandization of being an infirm fool, and that's supposed to be okay. All right, fine. Yeah, let's add that to the mix.
So also, writing off middle America, the report explicitly notes that Kamala Harris campaign wrote off rural America, assuming urban suburban margins would compensate, flatly concluding that the math doesn't work. Exactly. She wrote off middle America. Trump did not.
Okay, let me add one little thing too. And when they relied upon the demographic that they were relying upon, that is the large urban areas, everybody in America knows how damn failed they've been in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, Detroit, and every other large urban area in the country where they get control, they fail because they have incompetence. They are getting selected because of the color of their skin, not the content of their character, nor their personal abilities. See, we look at it and say, you failed. You have not been able to take care of your basic responsibility as governing entities. You cannot deliver public peace, dignity, order, safety, prosperity, accountability into the mix when it comes to governing an area. You are failures.
So it says here that the rollout of the report has been widely described as a political mess, largely because the DNC leadership attempted to publicly distance themselves from the very document they released. Every page features prominent red disclaimer stating this document reflects the views of the author, not the DNC. So it
Well,
says,
then why the hell did they publish it? That's how big a goddamn set of fools they are.
it says the
They
text.
paid for it and they published it and don't agree with it. Any goddamn fool with any sense knows better than to do that. And that's why they mess up every damn time you put them in charge, because they did not get there for common sense. They didn't get there for education. They didn't get there for economic acumen unless it's stealing or misappropriation of funds. They didn't get there for charisma. They got there because they sold the con game.
Right. So
And they were of color.
it says here the text does not analyze Joe Biden's initial decision to seek re-election at age 81, nor does it evaluate the chaotic rush process of handing the nomination over to Harris after Biden dropped out following the June debate. Also, it says the words Gaza and Israel did not appear anywhere in 192-page text, completely ignoring extensive data showing how the administration's foreign policy alienated young voters, progressives, and Arab American communities in critical swing states like Michigan. Throughout the text, the DNC inserted aggressive annotations to undermine its own author, adding notes like no sourcing or evidence provided or claim contradicts public reporting next to Verriera's conclusion.
Why the hell should somebody in the rest of the country give a damn about conflicts with public reporting when nobody else trusts the public reporting, because we know these lying blue jackass scoundrels control it, and that media that they control lies, and can't report to save their pathetic souls. Everything they present has to be some left-wing editorial.
So it says that the delayed release has triggered a major crisis of confidence for DNC chair Ken Martin. Martin initially shelved the report last December, claiming he wanted to avoid creating an helpful distraction ahead of midterm elections.
Oh, that's such bullshit.
The decision backfired. It sparked months of leaks, public demands for transparency from Democrat operatives, and accusations of a cover-up to protect party leaders preparing for future election cycles upon releasing it. Ken Martin issued a public apology admitting, quote, I didn't want to create a distraction. Ironically, in doing so, I ended up creating an even bigger distraction. I am not proud of this product. It does not meet my standards, and it won't meet your standards. So it says the author of the report, Paul Rivera, has reportedly been cut loose by the DNC, and party insiders remain deeply fractured over whether the organization is capable of implementing the deep structural overhauls required to rebuild voters' trust. What happened? Oh my God. Hi, Avenge. Judge, you went out. Go out and come back in. You went blank. In other words, the Democrat Party is up shit's creek. Listen, You're not going to win this midterm election at all. Like, it's going to be a red wave, not a blue one. It's going to be a red wave. 2028, it's too late for catch up then. I can't hear you. You're still black. I can't hear you and you're dark. I can't hear or see you. So go out and come back in. Go out and come back in. It's in 2020. I mean, in 2028, it's too late for catch up. It doesn't matter because Gavin Newsom, who is going to run for presidency? Okay, Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, it doesn't matter. The Republicans have Mark Rubio. They have, of course, JD Vance. They also have, you could pick any Republican. They're going to shine. DeSantis, he could run again. Okay, here you go.
I guess this thing about do not disturb is worthless. Naturally,
So
this
anyway,
crap that we rely upon doesn't seem to work for crap.
so look, so the Democrats, they can't play catch up right now. It's a complete breakdown. They need to just break it all the way down and just rebuild from scratch. And to do that, they definitely need black people to help them. But at this point, black people will be a damn fool. But there's still 90% of black people vote Democrat. So you still have the 90% of black fools out there. So nothing's going to change for us. Honestly, they're not even looking to black people anymore.
Well, you know what it is? The Democratic Party represents the couch potato. The couch potato is too damn lazy to get up and go to a gym and work out even at a young age. It's too damn gluttonous to deal with controlling appetite. It's too damn stupid to read a book. And they have accomplished thumbs because that's what's on the controller as they can play the vid games that fantasize about the real world that they're not playing in. So they play the vid games, and the Democratic Party wants you to play a vid game with life that's really unconnected with stuff, where you eat 5 tokens over here and you get 2 extra lives. The world doesn't work that way. So we need to get back to the reality of how things actually work rather than this fantasy that the Democratic Party has got out there, because they rely on a concentric, heavily reliable bloc to vote for no other reason than for color, and the Democratic Party being based on the color line thing from 200 years ago, literally 205 years ago when they got incorporated, on how to manipulate Negroes. They are doing it very well, except instead of for King Cotton, they're doing it for Tranny Queen Rainbow.
So I want to, this last thing here. Now the Democrats are yelling reparations this, reparations that. Let's see.
Hey family, happy Tuesday. I won't hold you long. On the heels of the National Day of Action that I participated in Montgomery, Alabama, shout out to all the organizers who made that mass mobilization possible. Certainly am reminded that the Voting Rights Act and the reparations movement are inextricably tied. The point of both is to right a wrong. It is redress. It is reparative. On the heels of that, Donald Trump has now stood up a white reparations billion-dollar taxpayer fund. It's a slush fund. People are outraged, but I need you to channel that outrage. Don't just make a post. Lobby your member of Congress to support H.R. 40, because Black folks are long overdue for reparations. We never got our 40 acres and a mule. We labored for 400 years without getting paid. Every bit of prosperity this country enjoys was built on our back. We didn't get access to the GI Bill, to the Homestead Act. We're still victims of redlining or appraisal bias, and I could go on. But policy is my love language. I need more than your outrage. I need your support. Sign on to H.R. 40. Reparations now.
She has my outrage at her bullshit. Let's start from the last thing. My old man was a veteran of World War II. I remember veterans used to gather in the living room and discuss GI benefits, which we got plenty of. It just depended on where you were in the country. In the areas controlled by the Democrats, the Deep South, black vets didn't get a damn thing. But in California, New York, Chicago, Illinois, et cetera, Michigan, Indiana, they did. So that just happens to be an artifact of location. Next doggone thing, that march was a damned embarrassment. All these Negroes down there passively on their knees praying and getting their asses whipped with somebody beating them across the head until somebody else felt guilty about it. That was disgusting and disgraceful. And by the way, I was a senior in high school when that was going on. And what that march is memorable for is not the fools getting their asses whooped, but what happened when they got off that bridge and they were down there amongst the housing projects and the ordinary people of that area who gathered to see what was going on. And when the police released the dogs and started going in there trying to beat heads, you saw folk running out, law enforcement, Democratic Party managed, recruited, and controlled law enforcement holding their heads when they were getting their asses beat. Police dogs revolving through the air as they got thrown out of the crowd, and axes being taken to fire hoses that they were trying to spray down the crowds with. And everybody in the country was going, "My God, did you see those Negroes fighting? Has it come to this?" And by the way, some few years later, when I was at a DC think tank and we had to go through 50-some thousand pages of congressional record to get an explanation for what motivated Congress to come up with the 64 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Rights Acts, and the various amendments through 1968. It had not a damn thing to do with peaceful Negroes. We found about less than 5 pages out of 50,000 talking about that, and the rest of them talking about we can't have this. We've got to do something to cut down this hostility and tension before we get a national disaster. And that was on top of the long, hot summers of 64 and 65 in the rest of the country that got motivated by looking at these pathetic creeps get their asses beat and said, hell no, we'll take back our cities, which they did. So I'm not buying into that garbage that they're trying to seize onto now. And by the way, the whole point was to keep from getting discriminated against by the color of your skin. And now that's the only thing these blue jackasses have to rely on is skin color, and certainly has nothing to do with capability, aptitude, motivation, or anything else that is a character positive.
I want to play this clip here quick.
Screw them.
If we're having reparations given out to people that were unjustly treated by the government, black people should be the first in line. Palm Springs was black people. Seneca Village which is Central Park was black people. So it isn't what you did to us in slavery. It's what you took from us after we pulled ourselves for our bootstraps, and then you use the power of the government to take it away. You can't say pull yourself out your bootstrap. Hey, nigga, I'm taking your boots too. And I think if now you can get people that shit all over the Capitol money, you can get people that were shit on by the Capitol money. I just think it's that if you're going to say that these people deserve reparations for the 2 years they might have been in prison, I think 398 years of slavery probably is the same thing. I think that now you've set the template that these are things that we believe in. If we're having
I don't. By that chain of logic, you ought to be giving reparations to horses, mules, and cattle. damn thing is we didn't stand up until the Civil War for what we ought to have stood up for. And by the time it was over, 1/3 of the Union Army was black. That's what we needed. And you sorry fools sit there and where in areas where you were the majority, you kept supporting your old Democratic Party slave masters to run your dumb asses, and you didn't do anything about it. And then when finally something happened, now you want to run right back to them and wag your damn tail and talk about, Master, please, can we have some extra dog treats? Because we was good and we helped you. You know, we went on hunts with you and we watched your place and barked when something came around. Yeah, well, man the hell up and take it. And it's ridiculous, this late remove, and I say this again for the third time this evening, coming in dead last out of about 25 categories on median income, $35,000, and the Indians are at the top with $100,500 median income, and we are down at 35,000. They have an average 72%, that's their median, have a college education of 4 years or more, and we're down at 7%. That is a disgrace, and that's our fault, nobody else's fault, because there's no racist white man sitting across the kitchen table from anybody black telling them they can't study.
Let me play this clip here.
That is a shame.
Want to hear my dear brother Scott try to rationalize this in some way, and I see you're getting checkmated here, because there's just no grounds for justification of this unless you open the gates and you got trillions of dollars for ex-slaves and ex-Jim Crow people. You got 6,000 of the Innocence Project just at Harvard Law School of people who've been incarcerated, and you got 2.2 of mass incarceration. I've been blessed to teach in prison for 49 years. Now, tomorrow is Malcolm X's birthday. He's 101. What is it about Malcolm? Well, what we're talking about is this is just the peak of an iceberg. When you're living in an empire that is unraveling because the hatred and the greed is overwhelming. And so there's no sincerity, there's no integrity, there's no character. So people will justify anything in the name of power and might, as opposed to integrity and what is right. That's a spiritual crisis. That's a moral crisis. Malcolm X was right about that. I was glad to see his face on that magnificent banner down there in Alabama when they marched in Selma and Montgomery. Martin was there, Fannie Lou Hamer was there, but it's not a question of skin pigmentation. It's a question of character, integrity, and the attempt to do what is right. There's no integrity in justifying $1.8 billion of people who engaged in criminal activity actually kill some policemen, and they get compensated, they get reparations, and black folk, indigenous folk, other folk, unfair, even white brothers and sisters who have gone to jail innocent, who deserve some kind of accountability. There's no way you can justify this. But this is just one peak of an iceberg. What we're seeing is spiritual sickness, moral decrepitude, and political corruption on steroids. But the good news is you still got folk in the country who are trying to exemplify some integrity and character and courage.
Bullshit. I wouldn't follow one of those hypocritical, incompetent Negroes trying to get me to vote for them because of their skin color when they're nothing but cowardly little punks. And Malcolm X would not have been on that damn bridge, and he wasn't, because he was not about the business of letting somebody kick his ass and doing nothing about it. So don't come up with that bullshit. The next thing is you don't even have the details right, fool. 1956, the United States Congress, in-house and Senate, passed a bill to put some money into a fund so if they had a situation where somebody was successful in suing the government, they would not have to have special private acts of the legislature to compensate those people. They could take it out of the fund. There was a $100,000 limit, but in 1976, Congress removed that limit and gave the discretion to the President of the United States. And that's exactly what he's done. Next slide. There weren't any police officers shot and killed in that mess, but one, and that was a protester. It was an off-duty female officer who got shot by some Capitol Police, so quit lying. Next thing was 180 people who were there, but then you expanded to several thousand people who weren't there because you were doing lawfare, which is a violation of the Bill of Rights, and that is certainly actionable, and somebody getting discriminated against, jacked up, abused by the misappropriation of funds and the use of authority for political purposes to suppress political dissent is an anathema to the American way and the First Amendment in particular. And that's what the compensation is about. And it's appropriate. So here we go, loop-de-loop. We got another Negro stalking stupid shit, and these other ignorant Negroes buying into it because they're too damn dumb, ignorant, uneducated, and ill-advised, and they're too susceptible to listening to propaganda. So that is a problem. So hell no. That is not the truth. It's an outright lie, and people are, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Stand up and act like men and do what Malcolm X said. Take your stand, man up, stand up, get up off of the ground and do things that men do. And by the way, your little pathetic thing about all these folk in the penitentiary, 6,000 people in this particular program is a very small percentage of the prison population. And the fact of the matter is since 1950 something, all races considered, all ethnic groups considered, in the American penitentiary system, we have a situation where 97+% of everybody in there pled guilty. Less than 2.5% of the people in American penitentiaries were found guilty by a jury. All the 97 other +% copped out because they got scared or their records were so bad they didn't feel they could go to trial. So what happens is we have this big thing so that the Negroes get happy with voting for fools who want you to give them your support because of their skin color. And these fools don't do anything about jobs, education, political circumstances, reigning in the control of who, what, when, and where comes to play for the justice complex. They don't do anything about generating jobs, which they could do holding their elected positions. They don't do anything about making the American public in general and black folk in particular get jacked up by not getting compensated as appropriate. They don't do a damn thing about the way that computerization is taking over the job market and industrialized technology is obsoleted a whole lot of people. So they have allowed the criminal justice system to be morphed in from a crime control device to a labor control device. And then they come up with the bullshit that it's to get free labor. It is not. It's simply one of these things of idle people get into a lot of mischief. So you get them working, teach them maybe a work ethic, a little opportunity to perhaps get a few advantages from working they don't when not, and keep the mischief down, because having a bunch of unruly folk who didn't know how to deal with public peace, dignity, and order when they were in the free world is a hard thing to deal with once they've been convicted, locked up, fagged out, and got to be booty busted. 96% probability after being locked up for 14 months and coming out and spreading that LGBT poison. That is not cool. Excuse me, but that is a reality.
I'm not going to say anything because I agree with you. Yeah, well said. One more thing I want to bring.
Man, the hell up, folk.
So, Michelle Obama.
Oh God, please.
Well, she defended MAGA supporters.
That's nice. How generous of her, like we need support from her.
All right, let me play the clip.
Yeah, I can't look some people in the face and tell them you have no right to be angry or to do something that maybe is against your own interests. That's human nature. Many of the people who voted for my husband twice, twice, And I know that that's how they feel. It's like, this isn't about anything other than we need something different.
Yeah, they voted for Donald Trump. Yeah.
You know?
That's a lot of people.
So you can't just
Wait a minute.
pigeonhole them
When
and
the
say you just
hell
don't
did
care and
Donald
you're
Trump run
racist.
against Barack Obama?
No. She is saying the people that voted for her husband twice when Donald Trump ran, those are the same people that a lot of them voted for Donald Trump when he ran against Hillary. So that
Yeah,
was
well, Hillary's a complete ass. She's one of these blue jackasses. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Whatever you're thinking, this is an act of, I don't know what else to do. I just wish we had more leaders that were figuring out how to do more for the middle class, for the working folks, because those are the folks who are drowning in this economy. It's not me anymore, but I know those folks, and they're good people, and they don't have a way out. And that makes for bad choices.
You screwed up the national defense. You screwed up the defense industry, industrial industry. You screwed up the medical care situation when your husband got credit for something that a doctor introduced by the name of Bill Frist in collusion with Blue Cross Blue Shield, which your husband's trust fund was highly invested in. You were his boss when he was working at a Republican law firm with you in Chicago, Illinois, one that's so old that it's listed as one of the primary sponsors for Abraham Lincoln during his first run for presidency and secured most of his funding. Okay, fine, lie about it. And then you come up with all this garbage where you don't deal with free enterprise. You miss every opportunity to do what Jackie Robinson did, which is steal home plate, tie up the game, and send it into overtime where your team won to make everybody anxious to get another black president. You disgraced the office. You did nothing. You had little personal stuff that you got out of it. You disrupted the proceedings of American life by giving everybody this idea that we have to buy into this rainbow cult bullshit. So, I mean, great. Great.
All right. So listen, they're no longer in office. The influence of the Obamas is strong, but not strong. But that's not why I wanted to play that clip.
Well, let me just say one last thing. I got to take my time going over the transcripts from the 3 Hunter Biden laptops and looking at some of the videos that were on it and in the context of what was written and said in there. It's not too late to go prosecute them for impeachment proceedings, even though he no longer holds the office, just for the righteousness of the thing. There are some episodes in there that demand investigation. And since Hunter Biden has been immunized by the pardon his daddy gave him, then he doesn't have any Fifth Amendment defense to being compelled to testify against those who collaborated with him. We need an investigation.
But your homegirl sitting up there keying with Hunter Biden like everything is all good in the hood. That was stupid. And I honestly,
I'm hoping there is a purpose behind that that doesn't meet that.
I watched some of it, and the fact is that she didn't even challenge him or anything. And that is because she's on the outs with Trump. She doesn't like Trump anymore because of Netanyahu and Israel, whatever. So what do people do? They go and befriend your enemy.
I have a sneaking suspicion that there's more to it than meets the eye. I'll give her that credit, considering.
No, I'm not giving her shit.
Well, I'll give her this, considering her father-in-law's position is head of the English House of
Is in a
Lords.
whole nother country.
No, hold on.
In this rabbit hole right
No,
now.
I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm just talking about how politics gets played. Considering that he cannot say anything about Israel, I have a sneaking suspicion that he finances a lot of what she does so she can, because he personally, as an English earl, can't come out against the government's policy.
That's fine.
But he
But
can.
my thing is, you sat down with Hunter Biden and you were keying, ended up befriending him.
Well, yeah, but
And
I
then and then you say, "Oh, who Coke was that? It wasn't mine. I don't know how I got." He's a liar. They're
okay,
all
one
liars. So again,
okay.
so she did not, out of all her interviews, because she let people talk, right? Great. But she did not challenge him. And that is the one person to get that interview. You should have challenged him, not Nick Fuentes. Nobody cares about Nick Fuentes. You should have challenged him the same way you did challenge Nick Fuentes. So I don't know what the hell. It's like you need people on your side because you are on the outs with Trump. So you go to his enemies. That's all that was.
Well, let me say this. I read the White House tapes and looked at the video that was on, not the White House. I looked at some of the White House tapes, the videos that were on Hunter Biden's laptops, and I read some of the transcripts and I listened to some of it. I didn't listen to all of what she was doing, but some of the questions she asked and some of the answers that she got that seemed to have been solicited in a friendly fashion are very damning in the context of what's on those laptops.
Well, he got a
So it
pardon.
might have been a trap. In other words, when you have
A
multiple
trap for
attorneys,
who? To allow the Trump
listen.
administration to prosecute?
When you okay, let's say there are 3 defendants in a case.
No. I can't.
Listen,
I need to finish with what
I know, but I'm going
I
to
told
be
you I
very
don't want
quick.
to go down this
I'm
rabbit
going to be
hole.
very quick about this, and it's
I
not a
really
rabbit hole.
can we talk about
Let's just say there are 3 co-defendants in a trial, and each of them has their law team. You have an agreement with co-counsel that one of you is going to act nice to the prosecution's witnesses and act like you favor their position and you don't want to be there. So you
who's
ask
going to
them questions and
who's going
stuff
to
comes out.
prosecute him?
Some of the stuff that came out
Who will
would indicate
prosecute the Trump administration?
you may have
Yes or no? Just yes or no?
look.
Yes or no?
Not the administration. The administration can't indict
The
anybody.
DOJ.
Yes.
Okay,
But
so why would Candace Owens set him up to be prosecuted by the DOJ under the Trump administration, who she can't she
well, yeah, but here's what I'm
doesn't
saying.
so
Here's what I'm saying.
that's a
See,
theory. That's your
U.S.
theory.
attorney anywhere in the United States of America can decide on his own for his own purposes to
Listen.
go in front of a grand
That girl got
jury and get some
1.7
indictments
listen,
returned.
I'm moving on from that. She got 1.7 views and counting. That's why she did it. So let's move on to this. So getting back to this, to the MAGA supporters, is the fact that, okay, I want to play this. Obama is saying, listen, MAGA doesn't mean they are racist. But I want to play this clip here.
Just keep it flying.
Keep it flying? And why do you want to keep it flying?
Why would anybody want to erase our heritage?
Well, some people would say that flag symbolizes racism, it symbolizes slavery, and they might have some valid points there.
That's their opinion. They're welcome to their opinion if they want it.
Are you pro-slavery or against slavery?
I have no comment. Thank you for the interview.
I'll give you one more chance. Pro or anti-slavery?
No comment.
I'll give you one more opportunity to say if you're pro or anti-slavery.
No comment.
All right. Well, there you have it. No comment on the if you're in favor of slavery or not.
Just keep it flying.
Keep it flying.
So he wouldn't say that. So in the meantime, we have
it's his business. Whether you agree with him or not, whether you're violently in disagreement with him or not, he's got his First Amendment rights to have his own opinion. So I support that, not necessarily his sentiments.
He just said no comment. So he really didn't act. He neglected to exercise his First Amendment right.
Well, yeah, but look at
he's saying, but
Maxine Wastewater, Jasmine Crockett, all of that bunch. Yeah, you might have that idea.
Take from it from what that you may be. Take from it from whatever you want from it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not going to answer it. So in the meantime, getting back to a black church, they are making white people feel guilty for slavery.
Welcome to America. Tell me what you're thinking.
Just so much.
Kleenexes, please.
I've always been interested in history and the history of Black people. I took Afrocentric classes at U of L. My grandma lived at 2821 West Kentucky Street. I've read so many books, and now I belong to a church that's primarily African American, and I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, give me a break.
Welcome to America.
How much did he get on his collection plate passing for this little show? And the other thing was, as Malcolm X, St. Malcolm warned, beware of the liberal white female. They're your worst enemy. And the other thing is, if he had done this for real to a white male without first frisking to make sure the person's disarmed, he might have gotten shot. You know, had this been for real. It was all pretend, all make believe. And, you know, the church is all about testimony and everybody confessing to their sin. So that the preacher, if you put enough in the collection plate, can say the words, it'll keep you from going to hell. So anyway, nice game with the pulpit pimps doing what they do. This is not effective. See, again, it's emphasizing being a victim. You cannot get anywhere by being a victim. You have to be the aggressor. You have to take proactive action so you deal with your adversity. That's the only way you can get around it.
I found it funny because it's like, that white woman, honey, you a fool. Now, yes, read up on history, all history. But
remember, it's not appropriate for white people to comment on Black history.
Well, she's
Black
not
folk can comment.
commenting. What she's doing is saying, oh, because of my ancestors, I guess the white guilt, I joined a Black church to be close to Blackness. Now, churches.
You know why they do that,
Stop
though.
interrupting me. I'm not finished. Churches in this country, across this nation, is highly segregated, and that's more so by choice. But if you go back in history and time, it was because by law, and it just stayed that way. So I guess she's saying I'm doing my part by attending a Black church so that I could understand Black people more. See, when white people do this, that's their way of trying to say, I want to understand Black people more. And in turn, internally, subconsciously, what you're really doing is perpetuating more microaggressions and racism by trying to understand. What do you need to understand about us? Just read history, understand American history. That's it. You should know right from wrong, justice, and inequality, injustice, or whatever. Always be for justice. What do you got to understand? I just.
Well, I'll give you what I got told 55 years ago when I first got here.
I think it's disingenuous when I say this.
When I first got here 55 years ago, this is what I got, or 53 years ago. I said, why does everybody wear a suit, white shirt, and tie on a hot 100-degree day, sweating like a pig? And somebody said, oh, you don't know, they want to look like a preacher. I said, what? Said white folk will give a preacher respect they won't give other Black folk. I said, well, why is that? Said, well, they figure that if a Black preacher has faith, he must have an inside track to heaven. So maybe they want to smooch up to him so they can get a benefit of that too. So if you look like a preacher, they'll treat you hands off and give you respect they won't give to anybody else. I said, oh, is that it? So I asked some white folk, yeah, well, that's it, boy. We all don't mean to call you boy, and I ain't going to do that. I respect you because you stand up for yourself. But I mean, we say if that guy, that man, if he follower of Jesus, he must know something the rest of us don't know, because it's hard to see how anybody get treated that badly will have much faith in anything unless he knows something we don't know. So we needed to be respectful to him, because some of it might will rub off on us. So it's a very bad policy to be mean to somebody who represents the law. So I said, oh, is that it? So I've known that since about 1973 or 4. And I suspect that's what you see a lot of here.
Mm. Well, listen, this was a good show. I want to say thank you to Lakeisha Howard. She's running for, what is it, District 126, no, 124, District 124 out of Texas. Definitely going to have her come back on next month and invite her on the X Space tomorrow. Great conversations with you, Judge. And one last thing, just to swing it back to Memorial Day. I meant to mention this earlier. I wanted to share this here that somebody shared on X. There's a letter that Abraham Lincoln wrote to, he wrote 5 families. President Abraham Lincoln, a letter he wrote to a mother of 5 falling Civil War soldiers. And this is Executive Mansion, Washington, D.C., November 21st, 1864. Dear Madam, I have been shown in the files of the War Department a statement of the Adjutant General of Massachusetts that you are the mother of 5 sons who have died gloriously on the field of battle. I feel how weak and fruitless must be any words of mine which shall attempt to beguile you from the grief of a loss so overwhelming. But I cannot refrain from tendering to you the consolation that may be found in the thanks of the republic they died to save. I pray that our Heavenly Father may, how you pronounce this word? Assuage the anguish of your bereavement and leave you only the cherished memory of the loved and lost and the solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. Yours very sincerely and respectfully, Abraham Lincoln.
Well, that's a tragedy. You remember the movie Saving Private Ryan?
Uh-huh.
That was because several brothers had died in D-Day invasion, so they sent the captain, played very ably, over there to command a unit whose job was to find the survivor and escort him to a safe place so the family didn't lose everything. That was behind the event that caused a late war class of U.S. destroyers known as the Sullivans to be named that. There were several brothers, 4 of them, who were on a naval warship, and all of them died when that ship was sunk. And they said, we've been through this before. We're going to name a destroyer after somebody, family, who suffered this grievous loss of all of the brothers died at one time on this one warship.
So I also wanted to highlight, reading that letter, the language, the way people wrote and spoke during that time is different from how we speak today and write today. It's like it's so much like as if he's writing a novel, beguiled, consolation, just the wording of it is different.
When I went to elementary school and junior high school, we were taught when we got English, never use the same description or word or adjective twice in a paper. Always be novel and interesting in your choice of phrases, so you kept the interest level high. And there was an appreciation for being able to use the language. That's what happens with his famous but short Gettysburg Address, one of the most famous speeches in American history. And in that speech, he encapsulated the fact that over the 3-day period from July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, the casualty count at Gettysburg was approximately 83,000 people. Now, you don't find that kind of casualty count anywhere else. And one of the things that is embraced by this guy wearing the Johnny Reb flag on his T-shirt is things like Pickett's charge. Even though General Pickett was on the wrong side, he led a charge up this hill that started off with 10,000 Johnny Rebs. An hour later, he managed to not die and walk back down with just 1,500. So there were 8,500 casualties out of the 10,000. And if you're that brave to support your cause with that kind of dedication of life and limb, you have something that's admirable no matter what cause you're supporting, because you supported manhood as you perceived it.
Gettysburg, 7 years
7
ago,
years ago.
our fathers brought.
Forefathers brought forth
It
on
says
this
our
continent.
fathers.
Well, the original score was our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. We had to learn that in the 4th grade, and it
See,
was
I'm like, well,
reiterated in the
damn. Do you
5th.
know any more of it or no?
The whole thing.
All right, so try to recite it. Let's see how much you remember.
Well, it only lasted a few minutes. I mean, we cannot consecrate, well, we cannot dedicate, etc. We
So let
can
me
only
let me read
consecrate
it. So let me
this hallowed ground, etc. Go ahead.
it says, now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world with little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. It's a good speech.
Now, background, what's going on is on the 4th of July at Gettysburg, the Union armies under General Meade beat Robert E. Lee. Same time, down in Mississippi at Vicksburg, General Grant beat the Johnny Rebs too and captured Vicksburg. So we got 2 big victories on the same day. And at that point, Europe was wavering between coming in on the side of the Confederacy or staying out of it. So with that political impetus on the diplomatic scene, Europe stayed out of it, and Grant got brought from the west, from Memphis, to the east to take command of all the Union armies. Now, you got General Howard, who had lost an arm, and we know Howard because that's who they named Howard University after, and he was head of the Freedmen's Bureau after the Civil War, and for 6 months he presided over reparations, literally the 40 acres and a mule signed into force and effect by General Sherman on January 16, 1865, that gave all freed Negro slave families through the husband 40 acres of captured rebel land and 1 army mule. That was approved by Grant, his superior. And it was also backed up by Lincoln in the Republican House and Senate. It worked until Democrat President Johnson from Tennessee got in office after Lincoln got assassinated. And he signed an executive order, since it was a military district at the time, and he wiped out that reparative award, the 40 acres and a mule. So is what it is, and we haven't had anything since. But the bottom line that I would suggest on reparations is treat it like a lottery. It'd be nice if you win it, but don't concentrate all your energy on it, because there's too much that you're missing out on, and cutting the check is not going to make everything all right. The
Let me make
most
a
you
comment on that as far as reparations. So that's your sentiments. My sentiment.
Well, I mean, it's like
Let me just say this.
$500,000.
Let me just say this. Let me say my piece. If you want reparations, you have to strategize legally, politically, and economically. And if you're not doing those 3 things simultaneously, you're never going to get it. We're never going to get it.
Well, here's why I just said what I said. If you take the close on, say, 40 to 60 million Americans that are identifiably Black, and you gave them $500,000 as a check, that would come out as about 14 to 15 trillion dollars. The annual income for the United States varies between 19 and not quite $20 trillion a year. So it would be interesting to see anybody try to pull off what would be for most a political stunt of authorizing paying out 5/8 of the U.S. income for 1 year. And that likelihood is not to happen. I call it chump change because to some it doesn't sound like much, but for Indians, a lot of people who are Indian make a lot more money than that. I made that much money, $500,000, in 2.5 days of work a few years back. So to me, it's just 2.5 days out of 365. It ain't that much money in perspective. But a lot of people would get happy with 2.5 days worth of work for some of us, because that's all of their worth when it comes to their historical presence in the country. So we need to think bigger, and we need to exploit the opportunities so we come from the bottom of the heap up through. And a lot of that's just got to do with our approach to life and how we look at stuff.
All right. Thank everybody. First of all, thank everyone that sent in donations. Appreciate you. Love you most of all. And thank you to the trolls for being losers. Thank you to Catalia, my moderators. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. And I will see you on Wednesday and join the judge tomorrow on X Space. Have a wonderful week. Bye. Oh, and FYI, Judge, next Monday we're doing at night. We're going to go back to evening. I want to see what those numbers look like.
Okay, well.
Good night.